Good evening and welcome to the Municipality of South Dundas regular meeting for Monday, December the 11th, 2023. Welcome everybody watching us online or here in person. Welcome, thank you to our team and our staff members. We'll get started with number one, calling the meeting to order. So I have a motion, let it resolved that the December 11th council meeting of the Municipality of South Dundas be opened at 5:30 p.m. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. Number two, confirmation of agenda. Let it resolve that is there errors, omissions, additions, amendments to the agenda? Anything you'd like to pull out a consent agenda? Seeing none, I have a motion. Let it resolve that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas approve the agenda as presented. Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. Number three, disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Seeing none. Number four, adoption of minutes. Let it be resolved that the minutes of the following meeting, including closed session, be adopted as presented. Are there any errors or omissions to those minutes? Seeing none, forward the motion. Councillor Vino, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, move into number 5A, Morrisburg Lions Club, DuPont Park support. We have Keith Robinson and Doug Grenke with us tonight. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us, Council, and we're pleased to be here tonight on behalf of our club. The president could not be here tonight because she has many activities. So this is a application that we would like to see the Council of the municipality help us with. Basically, I think I've given everybody one, and once somebody's had a chance to read that over. So this is as you leave the Morrisburg and you go towards Upper Canada Village or the Church Road. And if you noticed on when you leave by the Macintosh, you'll see forest, then you'll see the Evonics, and then you'll see more forest, and the same on the south side at that point, going down to the Church Road, save and except for the one parcel of land which I believe you guys probably own. I don't know, I don't know who owns it now, but it was a privately owned. Used to be a restaurant and gas station there and paved. So what we're hoping to do, and I think what you would see when you were driving down that road, is all these trees falling down, and it's a waste of our forests. And what we want to do as a Lions Club is to repair it, take the old stuff out, and have paths in there so that the public can come and see what a forest is all about, and not let it rot away and look like hell. That's what it looks like, hell, and that's what people see when they're driving down the road. So that's why we want to do that. The province, St. Lawrence Parks Commission, contrary to what some people might think, do not own this piece of land. It's owned by Parks Ontario, and it was given to them by the former people that were going to put a big building in here and make us all rich back in the 50s and 60s. It didn't happen. So it was given as a gift to the province, and it's just been let to flounder. So what we'd like to do, we'd like to do it in two stages. The first stage, we wouldn't go all the way. It extends, of course, from the St. Lawrence, from Macintosh in, but we only would start on the east side of Evonics and go from there to the Church Road and north of County Road 2. That's the purpose of stage one, when you can see that, and we'd like to do the second stage would then add it into the towards the Macintosh, so that all the parkland on the north side of County Road 2 would be involved, and then when that is completed, do the south of the County Road 2 and east of the operating engineers. So that's our plan. What we're asking you is not for money, but the Ontario Parks, as I understand it from our members, elected members for the legislature, indicate that you have to have somebody who has insurance. And we would like to be included on your insurance policy that you have for all the rural lands that you own, and we would like you to add this, subject, of course, there has to be a lease drawn between the Ontario lands, parks lands, and the municipality, and that would take some discussions with the province. But for you to have the overall lease of those properties and provide the insurance if something happened to somebody on that land. I don't think that would affect you, and I'm so informed by others in other areas that your rate for paying your insurance would not be extended up as a result of our cleaning up that land and creating paths there for people. And that's what we would like you to do, to accept that. Now, it means going to the province and saying, would you like to enter into a lease, Mr. Province, or Mrs. Province, or Miss Province, or as you go. Would you include us in a lease of this property so that we can sublease this to the district, to the Lions Club of this Morrisburg district, and thus we could develop it. I think with that in mind, I think there are enough community people in Morrisburg who would like to see that happen. It's going to draw more people to the municipality, and they would be able to really enjoy outside walking paths. If you get down to Glengarry, they have a similar program down there, and it's been very, very successful, and it's expanded over the years. And as far as, I know some mentioned in there about parking, well, I think we could probably enter into a lease type thing on a reasonable basis with a Macintosh Inn that would give us some parking there. And of course, at the very front where there is a gate, there's room for a parking of a few cars there. I notice when I'm driving by the Two Creeks, there's never really a lot of cars in there, but there's several cars, and consistently a lot of cars there on a regular basis. So it's very important, I think, for that end of the municipality to have this type of walking trails, and we'd like to provide the same for tourists and the people of the east half of the municipality. So if there's any questions you have, I've tried to set it out there for you with the maps, and if you have any questions, Keith and I would be pleased to try and answer them.
Robinson, thanks for your presentation. Questions, comments from the council team? Deputy Mayor?
Through you, Mayor Broad. A quick question. Have you thought about also approaching the counties? Because they do have a forest program that they have in place that may be of great assistance for this type of program as well. And I know they partnered up with a number of other municipalities. Just looking at it, you know, they have the Warwick Forest, the Summertown Forest, Ozenbrook Forest, that there's some partnership deals as well on some maintenance and whatnot. So I'm not sure if you kind of went from municipal to the province, but did you think about maybe approaching SD&G as well?
Well, certainly we would ask anybody for their assistance in securing, first of all, you have to get a lease with the province. That's number one. Okay, and then who is added into that afterwards, it's wide open. Yeah, so okay. I think that's a good idea to approach all people like that. Yeah.
I would encourage that for sure. I would encourage getting maybe some discussions going early as well. You know, I know that you have to get into with the lease agreement with the province, but if they can be an advocate for you guys as well.
You can never have too many.
Yeah, I think there's some benefits to that. On the surface, it looks like it's a good program. It looks like it can be a workable program. I will say I was a little bit cautious, though, I think, because I do know, and I know it's a short term, that the snowmobilers use the land as well. And I would really want to make sure there's a partnership and a recognition, and I know it's in your report about the snowmobilers. I know it's a small window of time that they use it. I'm assuming you're thinking this is going to be a 12-month trail base, and...
Well, how do you know for
Yeah.
sure? But certainly, we have the contact numbers for some of the snowmobile people. We would not be, in the initial phases of this project, be doing it 12 months a year. No way at all, okay? And snowmobiling is usually from, not this time, but
About 2
soon.
months.
And the other day, maybe they could have gone a few feet. But no, we want to involve everybody. And do not want to take away from anybody else. But we would want to have safe trails in there and make sure that it wouldn't be against anything that the snowmobilers would require. So we're quite aware that there are snowmobile trails there.
So through you, Mayor Broad, if I may, so the insurance that you'd be requiring, is that for like after the trails that are established for pedestrian people to go in and use it, or is it part of the cleanup as well? I'm just a little bit, I'm not quite sure exactly on the insurance that you would be looking for.
Well, I was advised that it's just the insurance angle, period, okay? That's our MPP, former MPP indicated that to me, that we just have to have somebody who's going to put on insurance, okay?
Okay. Sorry, would my Crystal, or do you have any?
Yeah, Broad, I'd like to comment on the insurance part of, so typically how municipal insurance or any insurance really works is we can really only insure the property we own. So this is where we might run into some issues with the insurance part, but there's still a lot of, I think, investigating staff would need to do with our insurance provider. We would have to determine who the landowners are, to see what type of, if they carry any liability insurance. And then I would say that if we were to enter into a lease agreement, that stipulation would likely be in there. But it's very rare that you would see an insurer cover a property that isn't owned by the policyholder, if that makes sense. So.
Absolutely, so if I may. We can have further discussion, questions, absolutely, but I was thinking, it's a delegation, and at the end, if we wanted to direct staff to go and get all these details, right, bring it back in an official report on how these things could work, would be the direction we could look at, right? So obviously, we don't have clear answers tonight. But yeah, further questions or comments, Councillor Ward?
I just had a clarification comment for the presenter. So I read the package before tonight, and then I read this package, and they're the same, but the questions you have in your presentation package, are those for us to answer? Are you looking for the township to answer those, or are you looking for, I'm just out of curiosity, is that for the province to answer? I'm just a little bit confused on.
Well, we had a meeting with the former council, okay?
Oh, okay.
And it sort of got stalled.
Okay.
I don't know whether it's because of COVID, but it's stalled.
Okay.
We did have a Zoom meeting with members of, some of the people from the Lands and Forests.
Okay.
But we had that, and then all of a sudden,
Okay.
full stop halt.
Okay.
And so we are anxious to still do it, but, and the owner of the property is the province of Ontario and Ontario land. So if they are saying we need insurance, that is the type of insurance we need. And I think that's the way they did the whole program down in Glengarry as well. Okay, so if they can do it in Glengarry, I think we're still 3 United Counties. Yes, we are 3 United Counties.
Just so one more comment. So do you, just to clarify for staff too, do you want us to answer these? Do you want our staff to answer these questions? Because I think these are the questions that I, as a council member, would want answered. Like your proposal questions?
What we're seeking is for your approval in principle so that we can then make overtures to the province of Ontario to see whether they would be interested in doing it. And those were some of the questions that were raised the last time, back in 21. So all we're seeking is your approval in principle, not saying you're binding to it, but just so we can move forward with discussions through our MPP as to seeking this lease with the province.
But do you have answers to these questions though? Because we just have the questions that were asked. We don't have the answer. Like, do you have answers to these questions? Because I think for me, as a council member, like some of these questions I would like answers to. And if you need staff to get answers to them, that's one thing. But if, like some of these questions I think might be better posed to the province. Like I don't know, because you just have a list, sorry, in your package here of just questions. And I just wonder, did you ever receive answers or? Because some of these questions are very valid and I think they're very
Yeah,
good
there
questions.
were some answers to those questions, yeah. I didn't put those in the thing, but there were answers, because depending on whether you want a large parking lot, we were talking about having some Johnny-on-the-spots type of things and things like that. So we did answer them at the question period that we had, yeah.
I think, Mayor, if I may, I think I would love to see the answers to these questions, because then when it goes to staff, maybe when staff bring a report back, they could bring the answers back, because I think that would help me make a decision at least.
Yeah, correct, because the questions are, who's paying for this parking lot and the signs, how many do we need, bridges, et cetera, right? So there's certainly some unanswered questions about that at this time. Seal Mills?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Granke, are you talking about the Somerstown trails that are down
In
just off of
Glengarry,
County
yeah,
Road?
the east end, yeah.
Okay. So that's owned by the counties
Counties.
itself, so that's where the insurance would come, and they would have built the parking lot and they provide most of the funding and maintain most of it through a volunteer group?
I think, yeah, but it's the Cooper Marsh, I think, Mr. Cooper started the whole project there 50 years ago, I think, when he did it.
Yeah, we're talking about.
But it's that area, yeah.
Okay, because Cooper's Marsh is off of County Road 2 down east, and Somerstown Trails is north of Somerstown towards Williamstown.
No, I think we were looking at the southern properties.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Ward?
Is that I also would, to the Deputy Mayor's point, not only the counties, but South Nation has an excellent trail maintenance program. They have thousands of kilometers of trail, and it might be an interesting party to involve in this, because they already have the equipment to do trail maintenance, so it might be worthwhile too to reach out to them, or perhaps staff can provide you a contact there, just to help you get off the ground. And I'm sure the South Nation has some good contacts with the province as well in terms of conservation and trail and recreation. So that was my last point. Thank you.
Well, just so you're aware, like it's the province is the owner, okay? We had to contact them to find out what they want and would, at the beginning anyways, just because maybe they're going to say, no, we want, I can remember when we had a Zoom call, we've got to have a big dig back there to make sure there aren't any things that we are missing. We wanted environmental studies and all this, and I quite frankly don't feel that's necessary. That the lands have been there for some time and not used, and there was a dig back towards Williamsburg at one time as well for Indigenous peoples.
Anybody else? Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, through you. So yeah, I think what the direction should be, Mayor Broad, is for staff to work with the Lions Club, Mr. Grinke and Mr. Robinson, and let's, because the insurance is something we need to sort out. I'd like to make sure that we clearly understand, as Councillor Ward is saying, let's clearly understand what the questions, the answers are, come back with a key information report, if you could do that for the next meeting. In principle, I think it's a great idea. I don't think anybody, I could be wrong, I'm not speaking for everybody, I don't think anybody's thinking it's a bad idea, but there are, we get presented a report, there's some questions in the reports, we don't really quite know what the answer is, there's some insurance questions. Just for my sake, I think I'd like to know that, and then we can formally, I think, give you the support that you're looking for, at least at my end, for sure.
And I think the work by staff should be based on, with the group, on what the province needs and then what we need. And nothing further until we get that data. Right? Because if we can't insure it, because it's the province, or we need to involve the counties or the forestry group or whatever, let's keep the work to the first step.
Correct.
And not to future steps.
Well, perhaps I can contact our MPP and find out what it is expected.
Correct.
That might be a simpler way to get to it.
Correct.
they're hard to move sometimes, the government officials up there.
I'm sure you'll have excellent success. CO Mills.
We will work through Director Jansen, Parks, Recreation, and Facilities, and we'll bring a report back to the next meeting.
Thank you. Very good. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation.
Yep. Thank you for
And,
having us.
Yep. More to come, for sure. Okay, our next delegation is OPP, Officer Sergeant Jim Blanchard. We'll switch over the PowerPoint presentation and welcome Jim to the microphone.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council and staff. Always a pleasure to be here. I'm very aware that you have a full agenda tonight. So the stats for the police report from January 1st to November 30th have been provided to you. There's no significant change. There's no areas of concern noted by myself. But I will just leave it up to you. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. Otherwise, I would just move on to part 2, the request for information on Neighborhood Watch.
Any questions at this point on the stats? No, but thank you for providing the statistics, and certainly we look at it and acknowledge the hard work that the department does do for us. So thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And the Neighborhood Watch program, so I was just asked to provide a little bit of information, and so that's what it'll be. It's a very, very brief presentation. This is normally a 40-minute to 1 hour presentation. I'm going to suggest we don't need to do that tonight, obviously. But the Neighborhood Watch program is a community-based program. Generally, it's done in a partnership with the municipality, police, and then an involved community group who would create their own board and administer the program. When we talk about crime, it's everyone's responsibility. It's not just the police, it's the community, and we all work together. We're all one, and we're stronger because of it. So, as I said, Community Watch is that volunteer group, municipality, and I'm just kind of sliding through. I'm not being very helpful for you guys, am I? But, so in the what is Community Watch? So, it's a group of volunteers that get to know their community, already know their community. It's about getting to know our neighbors, to be aware of what's going on. We can't be everywhere, obviously, as a police department, so it's kind of nothing more than our eyes and ears, and I'll get into that a little bit as we go. It's community driven. I can't stress that enough often. There's the expectation that council's going to run it or police are going to run it. We would be partners. And we all have a role to play, but we kind of all need to be aware that it's a volunteer group. It empowers our communities, is what it does. It allows them to be responsible for what's going on. So the many benefits to it, I'm just going to breeze through this, because if council is interested or staff or want more information or a follow-up meeting, I'd be more than happy to come give the full presentation, invite some stakeholders who would be involved in the community, and we can. So I'm.
That's okay, Sergeant. Don't cut yourself short. Spend the time. Like, obviously, we'll get a feel for it all, and then we can drive further questions. But take the time to definitely explain it to us and and go through it. Yeah,
all right.
Somewhat.
Yeah, just
very
aware you have a busy evening.
It's all good.
Okay, so there's a leadership team would be created from the community. So we would have a chair, a co-chair, and a treasurer. Depending on how large of a geographical area you want to do, what I've seen in some places is, a township-wide. I think that's quite unmanageable, to be honest. I think if we start a pilot project to say, look at one of the villages, and then we see, okay, this is working, learn some lessons about how our communities work, how our citizens want this to run, and then we could expand. But that, it's like I say, it's not driven by us. I would just share experiences and best practices. That's the one thing we do need is whatever geographical area we pick, we need 51% of the citizens, not to be part of the committee, but to agree to it. So again, a pretty good reason to start with a small pilot project area. Once we have those signatures, then we would, and we have that committee set up, we would have community meetings. I would assign somebody to work with this committee. So we'll do the training and you know, what neighborhood watch is and what it's not, and I'll get into that as I go on the presentation. But the biggest thing we stress is if you see crime, report it. We've had, so it's expectations, get to know your neighbors, and the other most important part is communication. We have to get the message out there to the community. So if people realize this is something that our community is involved in and that we have people who care about it, because the reality is not everyone feels comfortable talking to the police. I wish it wasn't so, but you know, that's the reality. Not everyone wants to call the police. Not everyone wants their name associated to something, but they're comfortable. You know, Bob down the street's a neighborhood watch person. I hear they're a captain on that, so I'll call them. And in communities, we've had great success with that. People who otherwise wouldn't communicate with the police will do so. And then it just gets the messages out there. So we're going to work with media. So I'll use our media sources. The township can use theirs. Sometimes we can tap into the counties for things. So utilize all the social media and media contacts that we have. And you just keep that message out there about crime prevention and awareness and what we can do to protect ourselves and the benefits of the program, and just work all the way through that. And then we have a lot of safety tips, so it's just, again, that's that media part. Just message that constantly. So that's the one after. Yeah, sorry. I'm not doing a very good job at all. Used to just clicking my own button there. So I won't get into all the tips and that sort of thing. A lot of it's common sense, but it is nice to message that out through as many channels as possible. Basically, the program is about reducing the opportunity for crimes to occur. If neighbors are calling in that suspicious vehicle, that suspicious person, any sort of behavior that gets you thinking that's not right, because that's unfortunately one of the realities lately, especially with COVID. Everybody's just doing their own thing, and they're maybe not talking to their neighbors. And I couldn't tell you how many times we've canvassed an area after a break and enter, and people say, "Oh yeah, I seen that blue truck around here for the last 3 days. I thought there was something up with that." And okay, well, if you would have called 3 days ago, maybe that family next door to you wouldn't have had the break-in. So it's just getting the community to own and take responsibility for the issues that we all face. One of the benefits, of course, is that as a community, we gain that sense of security and faith that our neighbors are looking out for. So I think there's a tremendous benefit in that as well. And at its finest, the program also can influence that determination that the community have to actually fight crime and feel they can make a difference and actually see that they are making a difference. Break and enters probably one of the greatest concerns for our residents. We live in quite safe communities, but break and enters do continue to be a problem. And as I said, the police can't be everywhere, so if we have 100 community members who are our eyes and ears, then we of course all would benefit. So when we establish the Watch program, it's, as I said, community information sessions is what I would advise. So I would take 1 or 2 of my staff, and we would invite, first of all, we do an information package fully to council and staff if you're interested in exploring this further. And then we would take it out into the community, and I would book a center, the community center or some larger facility. The last one I did of these, we had 100 and some people come out. So there is an interest in the communities to get back to talking with each other and working with each other, and I think people really do care, but they don't know what to do and they don't know where to turn. So I think we put on the information session or 2, whatever it takes, and then look for volunteers in the community to step forward into these vital roles that we need. The awareness, so I've touched on a little bit of the awareness, the communication tools, so it's just, using all of our media contacts. The training, a lot of it is what we are and what we're not. And it's really to stress we're not vigilantes, we don't go out doing citizens arrest. There's a 20 minutes of the presentation we would do would be what we are not. Let's be clear. We want you to be safe. Dial 911. If you don't want to talk to the police, call your neighborhood watch captain, talk to, that sort of thing. So a lot of the training is what we're not. And I can't stress that enough because that has been a concern and an issue in some communities across the province. I've included a little bit of Safeguard Ontario. Safeguard Ontario is a program that we do. That's another 40-minute presentation on its own, but basically what it is, we will do safety audits. We will train members of this group and along with our auxiliary members, and they can go out and do safety audits. So, if you have a concerned citizen, maybe an elderly person living alone, for example, they could call and we could go to that house and say, if you had a motion light here, these bushes would be a place to hide. This tree here makes it possible for somebody to back a truck and not be seen in your driveway. And just talk through those little things. One, so their homes are safer, and also, probably just as important, so they feel more secure. They feel they're doing something, they're owning that issue. So, just recap, it's all about reducing crime in our communities, providing security, and building capacity within our communities to look after community problems. So I know I went really fast, but open to questions and certainly open to a presentation to any council as a whole or staff, whatever you would deem appropriate, if anything.
Yeah, well, thank you, Sergeant Blanchard. Yeah, for sure. I think it's a big undertaking. If we were to enter, if we want to talk more about it, but I think certainly at a high level is to get to understand. A couple of interesting points you made about, you would think people might just call 911, but they don't. And the block person, captain, could be significant in helping that. Maybe you could just describe a little bit more on what it takes. 51% of residents in the village, so that's a significant amount of people. What does that take to get that group together? Like, what would you typically see?
So the last one we did here in SD&G, we did just a mailing list, and then it did, I think, 2 or 3 information sessions, and I think again that's why it's really good. So with that number 51, that's the target number. I'm willing to work with our municipality and our community at a much lower number. That's the standard that has been set by someone somewhere.
Right.
I think if there's significant interest in our community, then by all means we give it a shot. Will it be as effective? Maybe not, but maybe we build up to that capacity of the 50%, 60% down the road when we've got information sessions and we're doing releases on success stories and sharing what we're doing. So that's not written in stone as far as I'm concerned and what I'm prepared to do here in SDG. So.
Other local municipalities today with having success?
There's one in North Dundas. Quite frankly, it's not operating at the capacity and level I would like to see. I have had no personal involvement in it.
Okay.
There was a time where I did all of our township councils and looked after all that stuff, and it's not my role. So I think we need to regenerate that one before we start this one, which wouldn't take long. I don't want to say that would stall us, but I think, again, if we can show those success stories, get the media information out there, like the OPP alone, we operate on four social media accounts, and we need to get that out there, and that's something I can direct our media officers to do.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Councillor Ward?
Thank you. So I was the individual who asked you to bring this forward, so I really appreciate you. Even if it was a very quick presentation, I think myself and Councillor Smith were approached by some individuals after there was some vandalism and some break-ins in Morrisburg, and they were interested in this program, so I really do value it, and I do think it would be interesting if you could supply that package to staff, and perhaps staff could do some social media outreach and just see who's interested. If only 5 people are interested, then we know where we're at. But if there's much more uptake, then perhaps that is something we could spend more resources on, and the OPP could spend more time on, if that's okay. And I just think it solves, hopefully some of the problems. You know, I know it's very successful in other areas, and unfortunately, we haven't had much uptake before here, but times have changed, so.
It certainly is a successful program, and if so, I've provided the slide presentation to staff. If staff want more information, or if you tell me you're going to start a media campaign, I'll start one at the same time. And we'll just, I can release to all the local media outlets, put it on all of our social media accounts, and coordinate it with you. It's always best if we can coordinate and work together on any of these things. So if someone from staff wants to tell me your media plan or whatever direction you want to go, and you want me to do it at the same time or not, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, maybe we could direct staff to come back with a plan versus executing the plan, come back with a plan on how we might, in the new year, reach out and get some conversation going, maybe, would be best. But we should come back and present a plan on how we could do it, social media, which media, the survey, how we're going to capture names or interest. Other comments? Yeah, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, you stole my question.
Oh,
I was going to ask how we're supposed to get 51%, because I was just looking at the population of Morrisburg. I think is about 3,200, so that's 1,601. Whatever, we'll figure that out. And I've also figured in my head who the first two block captains are going to be as we're going through the presentation. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, we can do online or mail ballots just for a specific geographical area. That has been done. But like I said, I'm not going to hold us to that 51. If we've got significant interest and council tells me you want to proceed, then we will proceed.
Good. Very good. Any other? Well, thank you, Sergeant Blanchard, for being here tonight. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, moving to our next delegation from Jewel Powell, and we have them online. Laura Coombs is with us.
Great, thank you very much.
Yes, sorry. Yep, go ahead. So hold on 1 second, CO Mills.
Just before Jewel comes on, I want to give council a little bit of background. It's in your agenda, but just of note that that MTO put out a competitive application process for electric chargers or EV chargers. That was almost 2 months ago, and the applications are due at the end of January. I did reach out to local municipalities, CEOs, and it's not uncommon when the applications come out that we all talk to one another and who's applying for what and who have you heard from. And as you can see, when you're applying for a grant, it's work. There's work involved, and there's also a charge or a cost, sorry. So in this case, just before I introduce the two members of Jewel that are here, 75% of the total project costs are covered, which leaves a cost to the municipality in general, although you'll hear tonight that potentially there's not a cost with working with Jewel. And Jewel is the only one until the last few days that has reached out to the municipality about partnering. We've recently heard from RSL as well, but it was before we could get it to this meeting, so I'll be following up with them later in the week. So Senior Advisor Lara Coombs had reached out to me a few weeks ago, and then we have CEO Himanshu Sedan with us tonight as well from Jewel, who are going to do the presentation. And the intent tonight is to have the delegation and then for staff to come back at the night. We're going to be busy, I guess. Come back in January with a report and or a recommendation. So welcome.
Great, thank you very much. And my name is actually Brian Bradford. Our CEO is actually in India right now, is unable to make this call. So apologize, I'm here on his behalf, but want to say thank you for the opportunity to meet with you this evening. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Jewel Power. We are a company based in Toronto that builds electric vehicle charging stations. We've been in the space for probably 10 years focusing on battery storage, and probably the past 5 years really focusing on leveraging that batteries storage to use for charging stations. And so really appreciate the time today. And as was described earlier, yes, we are sort of here today trying to leverage the funds that have come from the MTO's charge on opportunity. And as detailed, there's a subsidy basically that they will cover for those locations where we install our equipment. And the goal at the end of the day is to have as many fast charging stations as we can, so that the vehicles that are coming in pretty much rapid order right now have places to stay. And this particular have places to charge. And this particular program is really focusing on the smaller communities to ensure that there is equal distribution of capability across Greater Ontario. And so we have essentially brought a couple of ideas to the town. I'm going to share my screen real quick, if that's okay, to sort of specifically talk about the locations that we were thinking about. And this is all in the presentation that we sent earlier to you. But we're really thinking about a couple of different locations. Morrisburg, Iroquois, South Dundas, Matilda Hill, and then the Williamsburg Library. The goal, as I said before, was really to place our stations. The way it's structured in the agreement with Charge On is that yes, they will give us a subsidy to cover partial cost of the equipment. The way we would structure it with the town is that we would pay for the electricity. And then as well, we would then own and operate the system so that people could charge their cars at the sites. We would also give to the city $100 per parking space that we use, and in most cases it would either be 2 to 4 spaces, depending upon the size of the expected utilization of the actual sites. And so we would try to structure that in a way that gives some money back to the town, but it's really a fixed amount versus having any of the volatility of the utilization that could come and go depending upon the risk we take on putting the sites in place. And so we have been looking at these particular locations based off of conversation with staff. And as we think about, where there's space and where we can get the highest utilization, these are the ones we picked in the town. And so we're really looking to, as I said, drive this as best we can across Ontario. We've got a bunch of different locations that, outside of with other municipalities that we're looking at as well. But the goal at the end of the day is to provide EV charging, fast charging capability, obviously along all the major corridors and all of the smaller towns that could leverage and utilize the capability. And so really appreciate the time today to present to you. And I'm open to any questions you guys may have regarding our either company capability and or what our goal is with moving this forward.
Brian, if you may, I just want to say a couple of things, Mayor and councillors, if I may. The remaining cost of the infrastructure will be absorbed by Joule, so there is no cost to the municipality to cover the chargers that we would place if you approve these locations. It's a 2-year period that we have to install those the chargers once MTO approves the site. So this MOU that you can see in the package that we've included is a non-binding MOU. So we can, if you choose to proceed, we would fill that out. It's non-binding, and then MTO still has to approve the site. But as long as we've done the application properly, they're looking for their chargers in smaller locations. It's a 5-year contract, which we would be willing to renew, obviously, because we would want to keep the infrastructure in place for people in Ontario. And so really there's no risk to the municipality to apply to the MTO. So even if you instructed staff to go ahead with applying to these 7 locations, MTO comes back and says, approve 6 of them, but you guys change your mind and you only want to do 5, it's because it's non-binding. we don't have to proceed with that sixth site. So, and then one other thing I wanted to tell you about our technology, which I spoke with staff about, was we are battery-based level 3 chargers. So what that means is there is little to no upgrades to the electrical grid to be able to, for us to be able to do a level 3 charge. Now, what's a level 3 charge? We charge a car in 15, 20 minutes up to about 80%. So most people can, 15, 20 minutes, they can get to where they need to go with an 80% charge. And the other thing is our battery can act as a backup to any community center or building that it's placed nearby. That's, obviously when there's ice storms and who knows what's going to happen in the weather in the future, the battery acts as a storage. So that's unique about us, that we don't require electrical upgrades, and we can take as little as 10 kilowatts and output 200 kilowatts and fast charge a car. So that's why there's a lot of the smaller locations and where municipalities have been turned down by their utility to put in level 3 chargers because there's not enough power. And we don't have that issue because our chargers are battery based. And one of the slides, if Brian wants to just flip to that slide, you'll see that we are in Loblaws, Sobeys, Metro, big companies. Tridel, we're putting a battery inside a building. That's so when the Tridel builds condos. Ford, big companies are using us for this exact reason, because we don't require any upgrades to the utility. So just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Much, Ms. Coombs. Thank you, Mr. Bradford, for the presentation. Any questions from our council team at this point? Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. At one point in your presentation, you said there was a 2-year contract, and at one point you said it was a 5-year contract. Which is
no,
it?
So it's when MTO approves a site, any company that they approve, we have 2 years to install. Not that we're going to take that long, but the MTO is giving us 2 years, and then they're having us sign a 5-year contract, and obviously we're willing to renew those contracts with, the systems that are being, well utilized.
Okay.
And typically our solution, whereas the other solutions that require, the heavy utility upgrade, usually in many cases, the utility is going to come back and say, oh, it's going to take me 9, 12 months to kind of get a new transformer and all this additional equipment. In our case, because we're using the battery that sits on the customer side of the meter, we don't need that upgrade. And so we can actually get our solution installed in probably 3 to 4 months, ready to go and live. And so, that whole 2-year thing for us really isn't an issue.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. We will direct staff to come back with a report at our next council meeting. CEO Mills, anything to add?
I got a question. When you talked about the rental, of the space, can you expand on that? There's 2 to 4 spaces per location, and it's $100 per month, correct?
Correct.
For each
so
space?
Our goal would be to do $100 per space per month, depending upon the number of spaces that we utilize. And once again, the goal there would be to at least have a dedicated space that, people can come to charge in, and, at least give some payment back to the town for letting us use the space. And it's firm. It'd be
so
like
we, no matter,
a 5-year contract for $100 a month per space.
So no matter what charging is taking place, we would pay the municipality the $100 per parking spot, minus one for the battery, and then we also obviously pay the electricity bill. And then we have a separate meter, so there'd be a separate meter on each site, and obviously that would track how much electricity we're using, and we would pay that monthly bill.
Councilor
So
Vino?
really, there's no cost to the municipality for MTO's program. From Jules' perspective, other companies might do different things, but that's from our perspective, we're absorbing the remainder of the cost that's not being covered by MTO.
Thank you, Ms. Coombs. I'm going to go, Councillor Vino does have a question.
Just through you, and this might be more for staff for whenever you prepare the report, but a question I would have that I'd like answered is from an insurance perspective. I mean, these battery systems are kind of been front of our minds for a little while here now, and we've learned a lot about them. And I'd just be curious if they're up, say it's up against our arena, and it has a thermal runaway event or something, and it burns the arena down. Does our insurance cover that? Does Jules' insurance cover that? And will our insurance give added premium for having a system like that next to or adjacent or whatever to our building? So it would be just a question that I would like answered in the report.
Thank you,
If I
Councillor
could
Vino.
just add one quick point to that. Our system is designed, totally makes sense to have the staff go after it, but our system is designed, we actually have UL certification that we can physically place our system inside buildings because of the fact we have a fire suppression system physically in the cabinet. Many of our competitors don't have that, but that issue is something that we've really sort of tried to make this as safe as possible. If the temperature inside the cabinet goes above a certain level, gas will be shot from a tank that we have inside the cabinet to put fires out. And so that's something where we're, viewing as a plus when it comes to the insurance piece and the insurance conversation. But just FYI, that's something we have built into our solution.
We have operating systems right now in Ottawa at a lot of the Loblaws around Ontario. So there are operating system. Brian, do you have access to the live? Did you have access to that? The live, so you could show them what it looks like. So that's one of the things that we worked really hard at is getting the fire certification so that we have this fire suppression system that is unique to us, and so we don't have those issues at all. Quite frankly, with any of our systems, we haven't had any issues.
Yeah, give me 1 second, and I actually will try to see if I can pull this up.
So Canada is fairly close to them, Brian. If you can show them the Loblaws in Canada.
Sure.
I'm not sure how often you get to the Ottawa area, but if you happen to go, you can see.
So, for example, I'm assuming you guys can see my screen. This is the software that we use to basically manage all of our sites. Here's the Canada Superstore. Let's go to this location. And so what you'll see is here's the electric grid, which is moving energy into the facility, into the actual Loblaws store. That Loblaws store is moving power into our battery. Our battery is then moving power into 4 different charging units, and actually only one currently is being used, and that existing use is about 25 kilowatts coming from one of the 4 charging stations. This battery is about 400, and just to get technical, it's actually a battery that can charge a significantly high number of cars, but right now the consumption is being drawn just for the one. So what we do is we basically manage this from a software standpoint as well as an equipment and hardware standpoint to ensure that the systems are up and running. And this is how we would do our O&M and maintenance into the future so that you can understand exactly what's being consumed and then what is being used at the charging unit.
Very interesting. Thank you, Mr. Bradford. Thank you, Ms. Coombs. I appreciate the presentation tonight and look forward to staff's reports. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to items number 6A, so public meeting. We'll switch over our PowerPoint slides and welcome our planner, Ms. Moran, tonight. So this is 6A, PE 2023-08, a zoning bylaw amendment, lot consolidation. So I'll give my little spiel as we'll do the motion to open the meeting, then I'll do my spiel. So I have a motion that the public meeting to consider a zoning bylaw amendment be opened at 6:24 PM. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. So as a public meeting, for a proposed bylaw, zoning bylaw, anyone who wishes to speak in favor or in contrary of any proposed zoning bylaw amendment will be given the opportunity to do so. Before you make a presentation, I would ask that you provide your name and your address. I'm required by the Planning Act to advise you that if you do not make an oral presentation or a written submission before the proposed zoning bylaw amendments are adopted by the municipality tonight, you will not be entitled to appeal the decision of the Ontario Land Tribunal. If you wish to make an oral submission to the application this evening, we ask that you raise your hand and we'll call you to the mic to speak. I will ask our planning consultant, Stephanie Morin, to provide a brief overview of the application. Following the report, we will open the floor.
Great. Thank you, Council. Good evening. So tonight we have a public meeting for application number Z 2023-07, and it's a Municipality of South Dundas initiated amendment for consolidated lot development. So this meeting is being held pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act, and requests to be notified of the decision can be submitted to myself at planner@southdundas.com. This meeting is an open forum for the public and council to gather information, ask questions, and voice comments and concerns. So we'll start with an overview of the amendment, and then followed by the opportunity for the applicant, or the applicant is us, to comment. And then following the presentation, there will be an opportunity for comments, questions from the public and council, and an opportunity for us to address them. So a decision may be made later this evening or at a later date. So as you mentioned, a 20-day period of appeal begins following the decision. So these are just some statements that we're required to say in the Planning Act. So if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Municipality of South Dundas before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas to the Ontario Land Tribunal. And if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Municipality of South Dundas before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless in the opinion of the tribunal there are reasonable grounds to do so. So just to go over the planning framework, at the provincial level, that we have the provincial policy statements, and the most recent one is from 2020. And it's a statement of the government's policies on land use planning. It applies province-wide and provides clear policy direction on land use planning to promote strong communities, a strong economy, and a clean and healthy environment. And under the Planning Act, it says that a decision of the municipality in respect of the exercise of any authority that affects a planning matter shall be consistent with the policy statements issued. So all your decisions must be consistent with. And then at the county level, there's the official plan. And it outlines a set of goals and objectives for development in the county for the next 20 years while having regard for the effects on the social, economic, and natural environment of the municipality. It contains policies to be used for the reviews of development applications and other planning decisions. And then lastly, at the South Dundas, the local municipality, we have a zoning bylaw. And it controls the land in a municipality by designating land parcels with specific land zones. And it specifies permitted uses, like commercial, agricultural, or residential uses, required standards, as well as a variety of general provisions, which we're proposing to amend this evening. Any amendments to the zoning bylaw must conform to the official plan. And under the Planning Act, despite any other general or special act where an official plan is in effect, no public work shall be undertaken, and except as provided in subsections 2 and 4, no bylaw shall be passed for any purposes that don't conform. All right, so consolidated lot development. So the purpose and the effect is to add text into the zoning bylaw, so under that section 3, which is the general provisions, that offers landowners an additional solution to consolidate properties for development purposes. So when we started providing services to South Dundas, a few opportunities have come up, and I've noticed that this is actually missing from your zoning bylaw. So there are a few types of consolidations, and everybody has a different interest in their property, right? So there are three main types of consolidations for property. So the merging of title. So when you put both pieces of property that are adjacent to each other in the same ownership, the lands merge. But that only applies to land that has not been the subject of a consent or severance or a subdivision process. There's also a deeming bylaw, and that's only available to property that is on a plan of subdivision. And then there's the most recent certificate of cancellation. So that's something new that the province has added into our selection of tools in our toolbox, but it's only available if the land has been subject to of a previous consent or severance. So not all property has been created by a severance process or a land division process. And so I just had a few examples here for what consolidated lot development could look like. So a landowner has temporary plans, like erecting a detached accessory building on an adjacent vacant lot. So we see this every once in a while. Somebody will own two properties. They'll have their house on one, and then they'll decide, oh, I want to put up a big garage on the other property that I own next door. Another example is for servicing purposes. So if they don't have enough room, but they own a vacant land next door, they could put a septic system in there. And then also, we've also seen times where somebody wants to provide excess parking, but unless there's a main use established on that vacant lot, it can't be used for parking. So these are just some of the requirements that we would require in terms of entering into that agreement. So the lands have to be held in identical ownership. So sometimes what people will do is they'll have, John and Mary own one property and John owns the other. They have to be in identical ownership. So John and Mary have to own both of them. So that agreement would be prepared, signed, and filed with the municipal office. And then a notice under Section 71 of the Land Titles Act would be registered on both properties. So essentially, what would happen is that if one of those properties would go to go for sale, the properties would then that notice would come up, and upon further inspection, that lawyer would note that you can't sell one without the other. And so then, in terms of terminating the agreement, so requiring a removal or relocation of any structures on that property, and basically essentially ensuring that the zoning bylaw is met. So if it's a detached garage that exists on a property, then maybe they have to go through a minor variance process because they're selling it, and then the next person would want to put up a house as well as that accessory building. And that is pretty much the sum of it. To date, no comments have been received.
Thank you, Ms. Moran. So questions for Ms. Moran on updating the bylaw? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Okay, I have a motion that this public meeting consider a zoning bylaw amendment be closed at 6:33 p.m. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right, so let's move to 7, our 2024 wastewater budget. We have several presenters for tonight. Treasurer Julie Stewart, Deputy Treasurer Sean Mason, and I'm sure we will hear from our Director or Manager of Water and Wastewater, Dennis Villeneuve. So first, Treasurer Stewart. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Broad. So we're here tonight to present the water wastewater 2024 draft budget. There we go. Okay. So I guess first, just to inform residents of our contact information, emails and phone numbers. They can also find them on our website. Scheduled for tonight, we'll start with the responsibilities of council. So we'll briefly discuss those, then move on to the budgets. Start with the water budget and then the wastewater budget for the 3 locations. If at any time there's questions, we can address them then, and then we will close the presentation, and if there's any further discussion or any further questions, we can address those as well. So, first, the people of Ontario are entitled to expect safe, high-quality drinking water. As a member of municipal council, you have an important role to play to ensure to ensure your community has access to high-quality, safe drinking water. So included in this, Section 19 of the Safe Drinking Water Act sets out legal responsibilities and duties of persons who oversee the municipal drinking water system. So 3 things to remember as a council. Under the Safe Drinking Water Act, it is your duty to ensure the residents have safe, reliable drinking water. You need to be informed, so certainly ask questions. In our water, wastewater department, we have qualified individuals who are knowledgeable, so they can certainly answer the questions. And finally, be vigilant. Vigilant as well. So, services that we offer, we have water and wastewater to both Morrisburg and Iroquois, and wastewater for Williamsburg. We run under a user pay model. So the water distribution and wastewater collection are fully funded by the user rate. So that means all the operating and capital for this system is funded by strictly the user rates, and therefore any funding from the user rates in excess remains in the surplus, in a reserve, and is used only for those departments. South Dundas does not have development charges currently, so that means it's continued to be fully reliant on the user rates for funding. If there were development charges, it could offset the burden to the user. So full cost recovery. Full cost recovery means our revenues that we collect have to equal the operating expenses and the reserves that we put aside. On the revenue side, we are proposing a 4% increase to the 2023 rate. So looking at this is an example of potentially a monthly bill to a resident. The example is 11 cubic meters consumed. So with the water rate, we have a fixed portion and a variable portion. The fixed portion, as it says, remains the same for everyone. That is to help the municipality to maintain a stable revenue. The variable portion is based on the consumption of the user. So then with the sewer charge are based on both the fixed and variable portion. Now it's a percentage, so with Morrisburg it is 75% of the water charges, and in Iroquois it's 100% of the water charge. The next portion of the revenue or the water bill is the capital levy, and that's to support the previous projects that have been financed, and it's to pay for that. The one thing that isn't noted on here is the Williamsburg wastewater rate. We're proposing as well a 4% increase from 2023. So the operating expenses are the day-to-day activities to run the water and wastewater facilities. So of course, wages and benefits, billing collection, which currently is done by RSL. They read the meters, send out the bills, and they do the collecting for us as well. Communications being telephone and internet, utilities, so water, heat, and lights, hydro, and of course repair and maintenance for the facility to make sure it's running properly. The reserves that we have in place, their payments, they're to pay the planned and unplanned capital projects and purchases for water and wastewater. Reserves are intended to eliminate any spikes in rates, and the funding is based on the asset management plan and the 2022 water and wastewater rate study. The current reserves that we have in place are the Water and Wastewater Capital Reserve Fund, so that funds our capital projects. Then there's the Water and Wastewater Rate Stability Reserve, which any surpluses that we have would go into that reserve, and anytime there's a deficit, it would come from that reserve. And then there's the Dutch Meadow Reserve Fund, which is to pay the loan for Dutch Meadows. Here are some of the capital projects that we are proposing that the manager of water and wastewater will be discussing in a bit. But our reserves will pay for projects such as this. Our reserve targets. So our target for water is 1.4 million per year, and our target for wastewater is 1.1 million per year, and that is based on the asset management plan that we have in place. Currently, for 2024, the reserves that will be going into water will be 486,845, and wastewater will be 333,555. So significantly lower than our current target. So the logic behind the reserves and what is needed, what is expected, if we just had one item, or if we just looked at one item, cost of replacement is $250,000. If we expect it to last 10 years, we would want to put away $25,000 each year. And then at the 10-year mark, when it's due to be replaced, we have the necessary $250,000 in reserves to pay for that asset. So considerable replacement costs. So some of the items that we do have in our asset management plan, $32 million is what we're looking at replacement costs for the water treatment plant, $19 million for each, I should say, of Iroquois and Morrisburg wastewater plant, $850,000 for xenon replacement filters, $500 to $3.1 million for the pumping stations, and then tens of million more for linear infrastructure. So all these items are addressed in our asset management plan. And I guess further to that, our asset management plan monitors the life cycle of the assets and the replacement costs at the end of the useful life. We plan, I guess it's needed to plan for these future events by having sufficient reserves in the fund so that whenever the end of life does come for the asset, we have the funds available. And like that, it doesn't, it creates a stability in our rates so that we don't have to increase them knowing that the reserves are there. And it will result in little or no debt because, again, we have sufficient reserves to cover the cost of the project. So some of the capital projects, I will turn it over to the manager of water and wastewater to discuss those.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In front of you is the capital project list for 2023. For 2024. I'll just highlight some of the major ones that we have. So we currently started a capacity rate study. We started it in 2023. We put $50,000 away for that. we're going to need 24, in 2024, we're going to need 65,000, and again in 2025, 65,000 to finish the rate study. As well as the carbon, we have carbon tanks at the water plant, and basically that's for taste and odor. Anyways, we have 3 tanks. This is the first of one of 3 tanks that need to be replaced. We had it tested last year. All 3 of them tested good, but they are going to need to be replaced this year. So we're going to start off with GAC tank 1 and move on to 2 and 3 in the following years. Also, certificate approval. This is for the ministry regulated this. We have to consolidate all our C of A's for wastewater and as well as storm, but I can speak on wastewater right now that we have to consolidate all our C of A's and have one C of A for all the wastewater. I have other items on this list. If you have any questions on them, I can speak on them. The rest are lower ticket items.
Actually, can we get to that slide and show what department they're in and the value of them as well?
Yes.
So that is all the capital assets that we're proposing for 2024, and it indicates if they're for water or wastewater, and if it's wastewater, if it's Mooresburg, Iroquois, Williamsburg. And then at the bottom of that slide, it does show where the funding is coming from. So it would be for each specific individual reserve, whether it's water or Mooresburg sewer, Iroquois sewer, or Williamsburg sewer. So our reserve and reserve fund balances, the opening balance shown there, they are unaudited amounts, so they are subject to change based on our audit. But currently that is the balance. The additions will be what's being contributed to the reserve from the budget that we're proposing. The deductions are the capital purchases for the water reserve and the wastewater reserve. You'll see under the water reserve line, the 11,179, that is to fund a small deficit for the water budget. And I guess just to highlight, there is no new debt proposed for 2024. This is just to give a schedule of our current debt. And the one for the water will be fully paid in 2036. And if we look at wastewater debt schedule, it will be fully paid in 2041. So then, if we move to water for Mooresburg and Iroquois, I will send it off to the manager of water and wastewater again.
Through you, Mayor Broad, I have some of the highlighted accomplishments we did at the water treatment plant this year. We replaced the vacuum system. We took the whole vacuum system right out. Now we're going to an injector system, which will save on hydro, because now it works on air. We also replaced the low lift pump 3 at that's 3 of 3 at the low lift station. We changed all the cards in the SCADA system that need to be replaced because they're outdated. We got 100% on our inspection as well as our audit. And we also, annual calibrations were just completed as part of our procedure. If you have any other questions on the accomplishments there, I'd be glad to answer any questions on that.
I did have one question from a slide before on the water debt schedule. Refresh my memory on from 2027 to 28. There's a big drop in the total annual debt. What's getting paid off there? I think it goes from like 422 down to 188. What?
Is the one paid off? Chief?
Sean.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I think Sean's.
Deputy Treasurer Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Smith. In 2027, that will be the last full year of debt charges for the water treatment plant. And then in 2028, there is one payment remaining. And then as you'll see in 2029, all that's remaining is the financing from the water towers.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so through you, Mayor Broad. Now we're on to some of the accomplishments that we did in distribution. We replaced a hydrant last year. We also serviced all the hydrants that were broken. We had 10 that broke during operations, and our staff was able to replace them all. With our vac truck, we were also be able to replace all the curb stops that they were bent or need to be straightened and stuff like that. We're able to do that on our own. And we started the water capacity rate study. The relining of the Morrisburg Plaza and Iroquois Plaza, so the surveying is starting on that, and it's on its way. Some other accomplishments that we have is, as you can see, our summer student, the work that she did this year. Staffing license, so that's one that's really nice to see. Our staffing all pretty much has their license now except for one, and it's going to be very soon to have, they'll be all licensed in level 1, so which is nice to see. Again, I spoke to you on this, the next slide, it's accomplishments again. It's just they're just slides of our the chlorine system that I changed over, and we used to take the residual from the pipe, and I felt it was better to take it from the tank because it has more time to mix. So that was a big project we did, and now it's a lot stabler, the chlorine, and anyways, that was a major project we did. We changed all the chlorine and turbidity analyzers at our plant. The granular activated carbon, you'll see that, it's the next slide, you'll see. So we're going to replace granular activated carbon 1 of 3 tanks. So you can see in the picture, the slideshow right now, we'll replace the one on the left-hand side. That's the first one that the water will be going through, and then 2 and 3 will be done in the future.
Any questions on that? There we go. All right, so for the budget proposed for the water treatment plant, the revenue, again, it's coming largely from the user fees. There is a small budgeted amount for grant and also a small amount for interest earned on the funds that we currently have. Wages and benefits for the water treatment plant, $461,000. Utilities, I discussed what's included in those at $153,000. Communications, $27,000. Repair and maintenance, $192,800. We do have loans that we are paying off, and you will notice there is a difference in the RSL meter reading budgeted amount. We took the amount the full amount last year was in the water portion of the budget, and we've allocated some of it to wastewater for Morrisburg and Iroquois because it really is for all those areas. That's why it's lower on this one. As far as the others, so professional development and health and safety for the employees. Water meter, that is to repair any water meter, whether it's the puck that they need to read or the meter itself. Of course, municipal taxes for the buildings and insurance. That would be, the audit is the water portion of the total audit for the municipality. Admin overhead, that is other departments that support the water and wastewater. Actually, this would be just the water portion. They have sampling and advertising. The contract services are Aqua. Just Aqua, that's in there. Do you want a further explanation on what Aqua is? I know it's compliance, I'm not sure. Mostly compliance, right? Okay. The hydrant portion is as well just repairs, not replacement, and then the truck charges of $21,000. So if we look at the reserves for just the water department, so Opening water reserve is just over $1 million. Again, it's unaudited, so subject to change. We did mention that the budgeted contribution to the reserve is $486,000, and through capital purchases, $133,345 will come out of the reserves, which we're budgeting at the end of the year to have just over $1.4 million in reserves. So then we move on to, oh, sorry, yes.
Treasurer? There's a point of interest, our 2023 contribution was budgeted for $425,000, so that increased $61,000 from last year, which is the 4%, right, as we're moving ahead every year to increase the...
A little bit more is going in each
year, every year, a
yes.
little bit more. Yep, very good. Just wanted to clarify that point.
All right, so once again, the accomplishments for Morrisburg.
Yes. Through you, Mayor Broad. So the accomplishments we have in the collection is we flushed a lot of the town in Morrisburg, and as well as Iroquois with sewer main flushing. Like we had that portion done. We started the collection rate study, as I mentioned earlier, and plaza relining. It's pretty much complete. I just met with EBB today, and it's almost completed. So, and we also had some of the camera sewers. We had them cambered as well. That's for collection. For the Morrisburg wastewater treatment plant, some of the accomplishments we did skate upgrades. Sludge hauling was completed, changed a bunch of UV lights, staffing license again. Everyone's pretty much up to date. Like I say, I have one left to get their level 1. The biofilter tank was cleaned and filled back up. Oxygen sensors were all calibrated. We replaced the PowerFlex 40 on the gravity belt thickener, and replaced a water solenoid for the compactor.
All right, so then the budget for Morrisburg wastewater, again, the revenue being $850,359. Expenditures, same thing as with the water. There's the usual, the wages, utilities, communication, repair and maintenance, and there is a loan payment. As far as included in others, we have sampling, professional development. In this case, there's the Aqua, RSL, and municipal support staff combined in one line. And then, of course, there's insurance and municipal taxes. So the reserve and reserve fund, again, the opening balance being $1,370,954, again unaudited. The contribution for 2024 being $240,558, and the capital items for 2024, $44,750. So at the end of the 2024 year, we're hoping to have $1,566,752 in the reserve fund. Any questions there? And
Reserve increase of about 25,000 from 240 to 266. Okay.
it lowered.
Okay.
There's 266 in 2023.
From 266 in 2023 to 240, correct. So a change.
So Iroquois accomplishments?
Some of the accomplishments, you're going to probably hear some repetitive things, though, but they're all kind of tied in together. But again, our staff is licensed to run that facility as well. We replaced the compactor screw. Sludge hauling was completed in Iroquois, so the tanks are completely empty in Iroquois. We modified the SBR so it doses like the alum used to get dosed into the SBR itself. Now we have it in the headworks, which seems to be working better. Installed a new sub pump in the ATAD, rebuilt the polymer system, and installed the airs and blower.
So the budget for the Iroquois wastewater treatment plant we're anticipating revenue of $553,714. And again, the expenditures repeat, but are specific to this facility. So wages, utilities, communication, repair and maintenance. If we go...
Just a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking loud. Okay, sorry about that. The expenditures, again, so wages and benefits, utilities, communication, and repair and maintenance pertaining to the Iroquois Wastewater Treatment Plant. As well as in other, there's sampling, the Aqua RSL fee, and the municipal staff, the support staff, and as well as insurance and municipal taxes. All right, and if we move on to the reserves for the Iroquois Wastewater Treatment Plant, opening balance 2024, $835,336. We expect to have a contribution of $84,804, and the capital items being $61,750 for a closing balance of $858,390. And if we, so as well here, the transfer to reserve is lower than 2023 again. I guess just to, it was $115,753 in 2023 and $84,804 in 2024. Any questions there? If we move on to the last one, Williamsburg, and the accomplishments.
Yeah, so through you again, Mayor Broad. Accomplishments, Williamsburg is a much smaller system, so we have installed some new level gauges out in the lagoons, so it's just easier for us to read the sludge level in the lagoons. We removed the cattails and the berm, cleaned up the berm on the east cell. We did the west cell the previous year. Both clear wells, the one on Highway 31, and as well as the clear well at the baseball diamond, were both cleaned, and the lagoon was discharged in the spring of last year.
So anticipated revenue for Williamsburg is $55,292, with total expenditures of $47,099. And if you, not as much in other, there's sampling and insurance there. So if we look at the reserve and reserve fund, the opening balance being $155,668, again unaudited. The contribution of $8,193. Capital items for Williamsburg is $7,000 for 2024, which will give us a closing balance of 2024 of $156,861. And there was just a little increase as far as the reserve transfer. It was $8,037 in 2023 and $8,193 in 2024. So that actually concludes the presentation. If there's any questions.
Questions? Councillor Ward?
A few comments.
Yes.
So my main concern, I think I've already discussed this with staff, is that our reserve fund targets aren't being met. I understand that it's a significant amount to target, but when we're looking at, my biggest targeted one is Williamsburg. You know, the annual bill, the total bill for the whole year is $187 to those users. And we're not even close to the reserve fund balance. 4% per year, you know, in comparison to someone who's paying Iroquois and Morrisburg sewer rates, 4% per month, they're paying $187 a month. So I would like some consideration to be put towards that, because I don't think we're fully capturing the full cost of the system. So my biggest comment is, we're spending $7,000 on sewer flushing, is a capital item. I would argue it's probably operational, because we're not really replacing a capital asset. But we're pulling that out of a reserve that's to fund the capital replacement of a pumping station in a lagoon. So Williamsburg is not fully capturing operations, in my opinion, at this point, right? So if we pull the 7,000 out and we take that against, what would our contribution to reserve be, $1,000? So that's my biggest point of contention. And then I just wanted to clarify, maybe Mr. Mason or the treasurer can answer this, but the rate study that was done 2 years or 3 years ago now, did that say 4% per year for the next, or did it change?
Deputy Treasurer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Ward, the rate study recommended a 4% increase for Morrisburg and Iroquois each year for the term of the study, which is until 2041.
Okay. I just wanted clarification on that.
Right.
So it didn't include Williamsburg either. So I just wanted to confirm that Williamsburg, we're applying that 4% per year, because it's a 4% increase this year as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think we have opportunities to do more, to your
Yeah.
point.
I just have concerns we're pulling out of a capital reserve for operations, when really we should just be funding operations, then increasing the annual rate to Williamsburg Sewer to actually financially accommodate capital items, is my comment. And I think Mr. Mason, sorry.
Deputy Treasurer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment to the $7,000 that's being identified as capital. It's an incremental item that we're identifying as like a one-off. And the idea of the asset management plan is, as time goes on, any major maintenance items or capital replacements or minor capital items would be paid for out of that reserve. And since this is an incremental item, it's a one-off. It's not something we do every year. So it's not, to me, operational would be a repeat item every year. Think of wages, whatever, draining, whatever the case may be. This is something that would be done every 10 years, perhaps, and that's why it's identified as it is.
Thank you. Councilor Ward?
So just to that point, maybe Dennis can answer this. Where is sewer flushing in Iroquois and Morrisburg? Is that in operations or is that in capital?
Well, through you, Mayor Broad, it is operations, because like what I'm trying to do right here in Williamsburg is Williamsburg's never been, the mains have never been cleaned in Williamsburg, like unless there was a backup somewhere along the line. So Williamsburg's such a small area, I'd like to just get a back truck in for 2 days and clean all of Williamsburg. Now Morrisburg, obviously we can't do that because it would be a major project. So basically what we do, we have troubled areas in Morrisburg, and that comes out of like the building repairs and maintenance on that. And we just, areas that are targeted, like troubled areas that we know of in town, we flush them through building repairs and maintenance.
I guess to Councilor Ward's point, do we want to suggest staff to think about a higher rate? Is that something we would like to consider? Have them bring it back and during our budgets in January? Councilor Ward, is that what you're?
Yeah, so that's what I'm looking for. I know that Williamsburg can probably be passed separately, correct? Because Williamsburg does not go with the tax, they go through taxes, they don't actually go through the rate increase, correct? So that would be what I'm okay with what's proposed for Morrisburg and Iroquois. I would like to spend some more time on Williamsburg because those are my main concerns there.
Councilor Vino?
Maybe if I could just suggest then for, if we could get a report back with a couple options at different rates that we could go over, because I agree that it would be irresponsible of us to sell that short on that system, because eventually it's going to need to be replaced and or upgraded, and if we end up having to finance that, that's no benefit to the ratepayers either. So
right on. Councilor Smith?
I'm going to agree with Councilor Ward. Compared to what the people in the villages of Iroquois and Morrisburg pay for sewer, the residents of Wastewater are getting a steal of a deal as far as, that it's about $15 a month. It's a little bit more than $15 a month. And I just did some quick math, and if I'm pumping out my septic tank at home every 3 to 4 years, I would pay almost that much money just to get my septic tank pumped out if you broke it down per month. And they're not ever going to get stuck with a $40,000 bill all at once to replace a septic system. It's always there. So that's, in my mind, I hate to put somebody's bill up, but that's a steal of a deal, in my opinion. It could go up.
Yeah. Real life example, so thank you for that, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Broad, and I don't have the asset management report up, so I'm kind of asking some blind questions here a little bit. On the $1.4 million a year target for the water reserves, does that include the full replacement value of the plants, or is that just the annual cost over time to do your replacement of your filters and other components?
No, it would be the full replacement cost of the plant. So whatever that full replacement cost would be at whatever date, the $1.4 million each year
Includes the $32 million estimate replacement cost. So I guess I'm going to ask a realistic question. If we keep upgrading and changing the components of the treatment plant, why would there be a necessity to spend $32 million on what's the end of life cycle when we're replacing and having a schedule that we're aggressive on and replacing all the components? What would be missing out of that we'd have to replace?
So through you, Mayor Broad, I on the 32 million, I guess that's on the full structure of the building. But as far as replacements in the plant, if there's any ever upgrades at the plant, like right now, obviously there's talk of going to Upper Canada. We might have to replace the filters in there and upgrade the plant. But that value is on a full replacement cost, right, Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the purpose of the asset management plan is to sock money away into the pot until, in worst case scenario, if we had to replace the plant. As time goes on and water staff are replacing components, we still need to have the money in the reserve to replace those components. If one of the larger pumps needs to be replaced, it costs
$5,000.
just one?
One pump, yeah.
And you have how many?
Lots.
Yeah. So ideally, that's why the money is there. Now, additionally, it's not just the water plant, it's all of the pipes, it's all of the pumping stations, it's all of the hydrants, it's the vehicles, it's the entire function of just the water system. So as time goes on, then that money is going to be building up, and when or if the time needs that any of those major replacements to happen, the money is accessible.
Okay, and I thank you through you, Mayor. I understand all that, but I think in my mind, we're overestimating the values here, because if we're estimating on an annual basis what it is to replace the linear infrastructure, your filters, whatever other components, to me, the $32 million is an overestimate, because we're assuming we need to replace the whole plant, which I don't think that's, to be quite frank with you, on a new plant, that's really a proper assessment. I can understand all the components, I can understand the hydrants, I can understand the pipe system, but I don't think, so all I'm suggesting is with the $1.4 million target, I think, to be quite frank with you, it's an inflated target, because I don't think we're going to need to replace the building at $32 million. This is if we need to replace it, but in my opinion, this is only if we don't do the proper maintenance and the proper capital works, and I believe we're doing all of that. So I just think it's a little bit of an inflated value, and I just don't want us to be increasing rates to hit a $1.4 million reserve target, when in actual fact, I know there's always a rainy day, Treasurer, and I get that, but I just think it's an inflated rate, and I would suggest that's the same with the Mooresburg water wastewater plant at $19 million as well. If we're continuing to be diligent and replacing and doing that, which we are, then to me, we're not going to be replacing a building at the end of the life cycle. To me, that's I don't know. Maybe I'm undermining it, but I just think I just don't want to be scared into a $1.4 million reserve target when, I think that some of these $1 million buildings isn't. As long as we're doing our due diligence, we're probably going to keep that building for a long time, right? So I agree we should always be increasing, and maybe we should be adding 1% to increase it, but I don't know. My opinion is that 1.4 is a little bit of an inflated rate.
So we're 18 years away from actually getting to that point, and replacement costs won't even be what they're suggesting today. But as the asset plan, that's the plan. That is what the plan is. That's what's been presented us through the study, and that's what we're aligned to do. Councillor Vino.
Through you, Mayor Brad, because I agree with your thinking on this one, but one question I had was that 1.4, does that include, because I saw on the first slide, tens of millions of dollars worth of lateral infrastructure, right, or linear infrastructure? That 1.4 include that or not? Because it does, because that stuff in our aging infrastructure around here, that will need to be replaced. Agreed. And so, I agree that the buildings may not need to be, but if that might be small numbers. That 32 million might be a small number in comparison to if we had to replace all of our underground infrastructure, right? I was just curious if that was in that number as well, because.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I agree. Through you, Mayor. I totally agree. I just don't want to be scared into a number if it's a little bit of an inflated number. Maybe it is a 1.2. Maybe it's a 1.1. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, I just don't look at a number and want to be scared about it, just because I know the asset management plan, I believe, is aggressive, and I think it's a great plan. I'm not criticizing the plan whatsoever. I just don't want to be scared and saying, well, we got to increase rates through the roof just to meet a 1.4 when I just personally don't think that's a realistic number. I think it's somewhat lower. But anyways, I'm not saying we don't be aggressive with it.
We're saying the building, but it's everything within the building too, right? It's all that equipment that at some point.
It's already accounted for, and that's what I'm saying. If you net that out, if we keep doing that on the capital basis and we're accounting for that in the plan, all I'm suggesting is maybe your life of the building is going to be a lot longer than the asset management plan.
Well, it could extend the life of the building, but the asset management plan should have taken that into account, knowing the life cycle that we do regular maintenance at these intervals. That will extend the life, and it will be due, in X number of years.
Yeah. Just an opinion.
Councillor Ward.
Working with.
Just to Deputy Mayor's point, I would say in my experience, $32 million or $1.4 million, you could blow through that in literally a month in water sewer. So I did look at the asset management plan when it came out. I do think that it's reflective, and I appreciate your thoughts on it. I agree. It's a very high target for us to reach, but when the bell tolls, I believe we received funding the last time we built all the plants from the government. Yes. And I believe the whole point of the asset management plan from the province is because they don't want to fund any more projects. So that would be my take on that. But one of the things I just wanted to bring up, and perhaps it's a question for staff to take back and we can look at in a future year, is, increasing rates isn't the only way to get to that balance. There are connection charges that have been pretty stagnant in this municipality for a very long time. I think they're at 5,000 and they've been there for a few years. Yeah. So something that we could look at in the future, that's on the fees and is that in fees and charges? So we could always look at that in the future, but there are other ways to raise that money. It's not just raising rates. We could look to future development, et cetera. That's just my only comment, and just to kind of ease some fears and some comments, is that we don't have to necessarily increase rates every year. We can look at other options.
So a year ago, or sometime in this year, we did agree to the asset plan, and we did set a motion 4% a year going forward. So we'd have to change our mind if that's not what we're doing at some point. But that's what we've agreed to. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, and through you, Mayor Broad, I mean, I don't think anybody's arguing with that. I don't think anybody's suggesting that. We're just having an open dialogue a little bit, just to air out some stuff for future. Now, the question I'd have as well is it, again, I apologize, maybe I should have opened up the asset management plan, but does it account for our future growth, residential growth study that just was completed, or the previous one that was completed?
Deputy Treasurer, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's okay.
Please answer the deputy.
You don't have to.
Thank you. Through the chair to the deputy mayor, when the rate study was being discussed with staff and DFA, the growth of Dutch Meadows was in its infancy, and we did include any of the growth in that subdivision with connection charges and rates.
Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So, so then should this be readjusted based on the growth study that is currently underway, and are a couple of our applications that are going to be forthcoming, residential applications going to be forthcoming?
Through the chair to Deputy Mayor. Typically, with any rate study or sadly any asset management plan, it's out of date the day after it's published, and at some point in time in the next probably 2 to 3 years, as these larger subdivisions come online, we should have the studies revisited.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and don't forget, we are transferring to reserves more in our water budget, but we are not. We are decreasing our transfer in our wastewater budgets in both lines, and that's what I was pointing out along the way. So even though we're increasing rates by 4%, we are in two of the categories, we're decreasing the transfer to reserves because things are costing more, right? And we're Manager Villeneuve is, managing on the budget we've set out. Yeah. Further questions or comments? Councillor Smith.
Long story short, we should keep with the 4% increase Iroquois-Morrisburg. I think if we're looking to do, there's an opportunity, I think, in Williamsburg to go for an increase. I don't know exactly how much it's going to be, but we'll have staff come back with a few options on that later.
Excellent, yeah. I think that's been noted, so absolutely right on. Yeah, so, thank you. Good presentation, thank you. Good details, and of course, we can always reach out to further. A couple of comments I'll make. I appreciate as we continue to align the dollars in the right categories. We're moving, some of the things around to the right categories, so to make sure we're following the correct procedures on that. And obviously, we're going to follow up on the Williamsburg rate itself individually. But I am looking forward, Manager Villeneuve, to a tour in 2024 to see all the things you did accomplish and to hook up with your staff again and congratulate them on the achievements of their certificates they have achieved and will be achieving over the next few months. So thank you to both for the presentation tonight. Okay, CEO Mills, yes.
Likely going to go maybe take a break.
Yes, so we'll take a 10-minute break.
Yeah.
Yep. Tia, could you put us on pause for 10 minutes, please? Okay, welcome back from our break. We'll move on to item 8A under action requests, FS 2023-05 procurement of pumper truck. Fire Chief Jeremy Alfred Hughes.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council. Tonight I'm here to discuss the action report for the procurement of a new pumper tanker. Just a bit of background. Back in August, a report was brought to Council with a fleet, new direction in fleet, where we were repairing pumper 163 and purchasing a new pumper tanker as opposed to purchasing 2 new trucks. We have repaired 163. The estimated cost was $100,000 and it came in at $84,000. And the procurement of a new pumper tanker had a budget attached to it of $670,000 to $800,000. We had 2 companies provide proposals for the pumper tanker, Rosenbauer Cityview and Battle Shield fire trucks. With the review of both proposals, staff graded them on pricing, delivery time, ability to meet our specifications, and warranty, service, and repair. And the deputy chiefs, both deputy chiefs and myself, agreed that the Battle Shield pumper tanker would best suit our needs and had the best service and warranty, and it came in at $730,336. So the recommendation is that Council approve the purchase and award Battle Shield fire trucks for the procurement of that pumper tanker.
Thank you, Fire Chief. As recalled in our past budget talks, we did see this amount coming out for 2024 in our fleet schedule. Any questions or comments for the Fire Chief tonight? Councillor Smith.
Just a quick question. Was it in the, I know it was in the fleet schedule for 24, was it was a requirement that we need it by the end of 24 for accreditation purposes? Or when is it needed by officially?
Through Mr. Mayor, this truck will be replacing 163 in Morrisburg, and that truck will be going to replace the one in Williamsburg, which is a 2004. So it would need to be replaced by the end of 2024 to meet the 20-year accreditation for a frontline truck.
Okay.
Any others? Okay. Seeing none, I have a motion that Council approve report FES 2023-05 to purchase a pumper tanker in the amount of $730,336 plus HST and delivery charges from Battle Shield, and that the acting director of Fire and Emergency Services be authorized to sign all necessary documents to give effect to such contract. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. Uh, 8B, FS 2023-06 year-end surplus and deficit. Treasurer Stewart. Deputy Treasurer Basin.
As we approach the end of fiscal year 2023, the auditors, M&P, prefer that a resolution is passed in the calendar year so that as departmental surplus and deficits are identified, the transfer can be made by staff or the audit team via this authority. This is an annual item, and here it is before you today. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Questions, comments, Deputy Treasurer? Seeing none, I have a motion that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas accept report FS 2023-06 to authorize all surplus or deficits as of December 31st, 2023 be transferred as described in the attached Schedule A. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. (8C) FS 2023-07 excluded expenses report. Treasurer Stewart.
Yes, through you, Mayor Broad. So currently we prepare a budget on a cash basis, which doesn't include non-cash items. Now, as part of the annual reporting under Ontario Regulation 284-09, it requires us to outline the non-cash items which are not part of the budget. So the schedule that's attached to your report shows those items that are non-cash, being the tangible capital assets and the amortization affected by those assets, as well as proceeds from a loan, long-term debt, and payments towards that long-term debt. So, and basically it gives a summary of the effect that they would have on the budget had they been there. And I guess the positive on this side is there's no new loans, and we've paid $794,000 in long-term debt, or budgeted $734,000 in long-term debt for 2023. So it's a report that is required annually to provide to council.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none, I have a motion that the Council of Municipality of Dundas accept report FS 2023-07 to approve the 2023 excluded expense report as required by the Ontario Regulation 24809 as per the attached. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. Okay, 8D. PE 2023-09 EDP Renewable Battery Storage Project. Planner Stephanie Morin. Welcome, Stephanie.
All right. Thank you.
Before you start, Ms. Morin, the TV is off here. Should it be on? Okay.
We don't have anything else to put
Okay. Very good. We'll work off our screens. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So thank you. So we have two agenda items this evening concerning battery storage procurement, and I'm sure you've all had time to look over the two reports since it's been a hot button topic over the last 8 weeks or so. The procurement bid is due tomorrow, December 12th. So I thought per the agenda, we'll sort of just start with the first one, which was the first delegation, as well as the first property that we discussed at the Committee of the Whole. So that's the EDP Renewables, the South Branch Battery Storage Project. So as discussed, the long-term energy storage procurement is the result of IESO's response to the increase in demand for electricity. So EDP Renewables did find a willing landowner, part of lots 35 to 37, concession 6, along Branch Road. So you've got a few maps that I've sort of outlined in the report. So if you're looking for something to pull out, that first report's probably the best indicator for EDP. So the property is about 200 acres. It's located on the south side of Branch Road, just east of Biker Road, near the South Dundas, Edwardsburg Cardinal border, and west of County Road 1. It's mostly tiled farmland, and the only structure on the property are 2 ground-mounted solar panels. So the hydro lines that are at the point of connection to the grid are located about 135 meters from the road at the furthest point away. Site access would be from Branch Road. I did have the opportunity, along with the fire chief, to visit this site, and it is a prime agricultural area, and it seems to be such as the properties all in the area are still cropped. So, as I kind of went over earlier in a previous presentation about the way that the structure of planning sort of goes is the province, the provincial policy statements, and they outline a lot of policies that we have to abide by, but they are fairly permissive when it comes to projects related to infrastructure. But really through all of the policies, and I've sort of outlined them all for you in that report, that we need this decision, we need to be weighing the needs of Ontarians with the impact to the agricultural resource, as well as public health and safety. So specifically, I just want to point out that Section 2.3.6.1 states that planning authorities may only permit non-agricultural uses in prime agricultural areas for limited non-residential uses, provided that all of the following are demonstrated. including alternative locations have been evaluated, and there is no reasonable alternative locations which avoid prime agricultural areas, and that there are no reasonable alternative locations in prime agricultural areas with lower priority agricultural lands. So, you know, we've been in a unique position because we do have two, you know, in a similar like geographic area, but two very, in my opinion, very different projects, despite the fact that they are both bidding. But through all of this, what it's sort of pointed out to me anyway, is that there may be alternative locations on lower quality prime ag soil, but it might not be possible to identify any willing landowners within the procurement timeline. So when I, you know, unfortunately was able to compare the two, and there were things that stood out to me, and specifically that the prime agricultural land is a big part of this, you know, this recommendation on this property. So moving down from that, from the province's policies that you've got, the official plan designation is agricultural resource land, and again, as I kind of discussed at the committee of the whole meeting, that there are three major components that make up a prime agricultural area. So we're designating these in about 250 hectare blocks. We look at the soil quality, so primarily class 1 to 3 soil, investment in agriculture, and then land use compatibility. While the proposal is located away from prime agriculture, is located away from sensitive land uses, in order to meet those noise modeling scenarios and setbacks from the hydro lines. It is located in class 2 and 3 soil, and this area is fully tile drained. So that investment in agriculture is there, and it does form a big base of my recommendation to deny support on this. Is there? Oh, okay. So when we looked at, through the committee of the whole, when we looked at the sort of snapshot across SD and G in terms of where these hydro lines fall, and you do have a map, that yellowish color is the prime agricultural area, and you'll see most of that land is around those hydro lines are prime agricultural, and you've got some provincially significant wetland, pretty large network, sort of dotted with rural designated lands going towards South Stormont. Now, through all of this, some of the discussion items that have sort of come up, we have gone through a lot of questions and concerns that have sort of circulated from the public through the open house, through questions and comments and answers from that have gone to EDP, have gone to yourselves as members of council, have come to staff, and a lot of them, you know, I sort of broke it down kind of in the same way that I broke down the committee of the whole presentation, and really it's, you know, support versus approval, and I really also wanted to highlight this, that like every other applicant, like every other developer or landowner, the development has to adhere to a bunch of legislation, and all of this, I've kind of laid out a few of those for you, or not so much a few, but a list of them. At the end of the day, it's all sort of bound in that site plan control bylaw. So if they don't meet a piece of legislation, just like any other developer, it wouldn't be permitted. We couldn't go further. So that municipal support resolution, it provides the developer with the go-ahead to make that application tomorrow. Now, in terms of emergency response and fire, we haven't received very much detailed information expected of our the fire response or emergency response from EDP. They would need to maintain a perimeter, and then really it's a lot of it's just monitoring from EDP, because they would shut down the cells remotely, and that's how they mitigate their fires. So South Dundas's response would be limited. Of importance to note, though, that the Canadian Renewable Energy Association and Energy Storage Canada, the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs, in a partnership between the two, they've issued a firefighter handbook for battery storage facilities that outline the risks and how to manage the events. So I had included that handbook as part of an appendix to the following report. But in terms of fire or emergency response, the details of that I'm not so much able to answer because this has been a team effort through going through this whole process. So from the drinking water and environmental impacts, that's also been a big key feature and questions, comments, concerns that we've received. I did reach out to South Nation Conservation Authority, for which they had to say that neither of the proposals occur in a wellhead protection area or intake protection zone that with a vulnerability score that would be considered a significant drinking water threat. They do fall within the Castleman's IPZ3, which is a vulnerability of 3, which is a highly vulnerable aquifer, but there are no source water protection plans or plan policies that apply to either proposal. From natural hazards, a flood analysis has not been completed yet, and that is one thing that would be done throughout the site plan process. And as well as in terms of the SNC regulations, any lands within 15 meters or 15 meters adjacent to the 1 in 100 year floodplain is regulated by the CA, and again, that's the permitting process that would be required to followed just like any other development. From a noise perspective, a noise model has been completed to make sure that the mandatory 40 decibels, which is set by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, is able to be met at their site location. Again, noise walls would be required within and around the project. And the model also considers vacant lot receptors for the potential for additional sensitive land uses. Again, though, a detailed noise report would be part of the process over the next 2 years. In terms of benefits, which I think is always something that I think you guys want to hear about as well, we highlighted the sort of 3 major benefits to South Dundas, being the Community Benefit Fund, reliable and yearly industrial tax base, and some short-term local job opportunities. To date, EDP has led the conversations with EDP and the senior team have led to a commitment of $150,000 a year with the ability to use those funds across South Dundas, which is significant, as well as the increased tax assessment moving forward after it's been completed. We've received a ton of comments, questions, concerns, and we've also received some messages of support with related to these projects. I think, but ultimately with this particular one, staff are not recommending support for a few reasons. Ontario and Councillor Vino highlighted some of this at the Committee of the Whole meeting. But the Ontario Farmland Trust they're reporting that they've lost 2.8 million acres, which is 18% of its farmland, to non-agricultural land uses like aggregate mining and urbanization. And StatsCan in 2021 said that Ontario is losing 319 acres of farmland every day. Ultimately, in terms of the soil class, the investment in agriculture, the highest and best use of the subject lands, using the weighting of the PPS policies and the official plan policies, are for agricultural purposes. The landowners put significant investment into the land, and it's part of a well-established prime agricultural area. While these projects need to be located along corridors of suitable transmission lines, there are alternative locations, as we've sort of pointed out through this process, that wouldn't impact some of South Dundas's most productive farmland. And this land really should continue to be under agricultural production. So I'll leave that back to you.
Thank you. Excellent report, Ms. Moore. Appreciate all your time on EDP's proposal. Questions or comments on the recommendation to not move forward with the resolution with EDP? Okay. We'll move to 8. So I do have a motion for council not to support the development, construction, or operation of a long-term reliable project on the subject lands identified as part lots 35 to 37, concession 6 Branch Road. Do we move the motion? Councilor Vino, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we'll move to 8E, PE 2023-10, Potentia Renewable Battery Storage. Continuing, Ms. Moran.
Thank you. So the second long-term storage facility, Potentia Renewables, Inc., they found a willing landowner, and part of lots 28 and 29, concession 6, on a property with frontage on Kirker Road, South Branch Road, and Gilmer Road. So this evening I am recommending support. So I will try to keep this one a little bit shorter. Okay. So the subject properties have a combined total area of about 300 acres and are located on the south side of Kirker Road, the north side of Gilmer Road, and along the western curve of South Branch Road where it meets Gilmore Road. The property is bisected by the south branch of the South Nation River to the south and the Sandy Creek Municipal Drain to the north. It's mostly farmland, including a farmhouse and farm buildings at the far south, which is about 10613 and 10651 South Branch Road. The hydro lines that are the point of connection to the grid are located just north of the Sandy Creek Municipal Drain and have approximately 70 acres of dense forest cover, both below and surrounding the lines. The site access road has not been formalized to date, but will likely gain access from Kirker Road. What was sort of a marker for me, one of the many markers for me, is that the proximity of a dense forest buffer along a primarily agricultural stretch of land is very much provides some overall site suitability for the battery storage project because there is some noise that emits during the cooling process of the batteries. While I should note, though, that the noise modeling has not considered that forest. So if the forest was not there, the noise modeling shows that the 40 decibels is still able to be met to those sensitive receptors. So basically, as mentioned, the PBS policies are fairly permissive when it comes to infrastructure. And when we go through the official plan designation, it is also designated prime agricultural. Again, just to touch on those items of what makes prime agricultural land prime agricultural. Designated in 250 hectare blocks. We look at soil quality, primarily class 1 to 3 soil, the investment in agriculture, and the land use compatibility. I did, along with the fire chief, attend the site to take a look, and there is a remarkable difference between the two sites. Now, again, similar though, this site would have, while it is technically visually screened from the forest, it would still have sound walls, and the sort of the makeup and the layout of that land and the roads is very much sort of a mix of what could be classified as rural lands to agricultural, but I think some of it is the road layout, some of it is, I think a combination of the forest that sort of meanders through, and the drains that sort of meander through the fields. Potentia has been in constant contact with the public and staff, even so much that they had, office hours specifically to respond to some of the public's comments or questions. No comments or questions were raised during the last little bit last week that Will Patterson had office hours. They have been willing to provide any comments, questions. We've been getting emails through council meetings, through the committee of the whole. They've really been engaged with both the public and with staff throughout this. So again, the site plan control agreement would bind, just in the same way for EDP, would bind all of the future approvals. But this, again, they're requesting municipal support via resolution. Now, from an emergency response and fire perspective, they've been very helpful in outlining what is expected of South Dundas's fire response. Even though they're still developing and analyzing what that would look like, they provided a sample emergency response plan to Fire Chief Aldred Hughes. And again, it would be basically to maintain a perimeter and monitor the container. Now, one of the big questions that have sort of come up is what fire suppression product is being used in these. And the agent that's currently being used by Potentia has been Novec 1230, produced by 3M. But it is being phased out to 2025, so they are suggesting that StatX is an example of a product that they could use. So I had included the MSDS sheet for the agent with the report. From a drinking water and environmental impact, again, it's not, neither proposal is in a wellhead protection area or intake protection zone. That would be considered a significant drinking water threat, but they do fall within Castleman's IPZ3 with a vulnerability of 3, which is identified as a highly vulnerable aquifer, but no source protection plan policies apply. A 1 in 100-year floodplain has been identified for the south branch of the South Nation River at the south end of the properties. And then the elevations of the floodplain range across the property. But essentially, from the natural hazard perspective, a setback of 15 meters from the municipal drain that bisects it is what they are suggesting would be appropriate, or South Nation is suggesting would be what they'd be considering minimum. But through discussions with Potentia, they're a minimum of 30 meters. That their environmental consultants have suggested. So again, the SNC regulations, they discuss that the Sandy Creek Municipal Drain flows through the properties at the north end and is a permanent flowing Class E drain. The Harbours Municipal Drain flows intermittently at the south end of the south branch of the South Nation River. And there are 2 mapped water courses that flow eastward into the south branch of the South Nation through the agricultural lands on the property. So again, though, the regulation part of it, once we go through the Class EA, that is going to, the studies contained in the Class EA are going to minimize and mitigate any risks as much as they can. To date, the noise model has been completed and is able to be met. And then a detailed noise report will be produced as part of the complete application requirements. As far as benefits go, the senior team, there would be, have negotiated that community benefit fund, and they've committed to $150,000 a year with the ability to use those funds across South Dundas, and a commitment letter on the community benefit from the CEO of Potentia Renewables has been included with the report. Additionally, again, the increase in industrial taxes also is another benefit to having the project in South Dundas. But ultimately, we've evaluated and weighed the risks and benefits of supporting the proposal and do recommend support. It is located outside of the Class 1 to 3 soil, away from sensitive land uses. It will be visually screened by a noise wall and a dense forest to the north and west. While it does not avoid actively farmed lands, it does avoid a section of tile-drained lands. It would be in the municipality's interest to look at adding an appendix to the subdivision and site plan design manual that specifically is geared to battery storage projects that could add some further control measures to these developments. And another thing that I sort of thought about just sort of in the last couple days is that while Potentia's project, their lease agreement is for the site only, that forest, I think, does lend to a dense buffer. It will mitigate a little bit of noise, dampen some of that noise, avoid the visually screened part of the project. I think there's some strengths in having that forest there, and maybe we should be looking at opportunities to maybe secure the future of that forest in that area. But aside from that, the proponent has satisfied all of our questions to the best of their ability with known risks, but all of the studies moving forward through the Class EA process and through the site plan process, I think will be part of what moves this project, or able to move this project forward. So I'll leave that with you.
Thank you, Ms. Moran. There's certainly a lot to unpack between the two proposals. Questions to Ms. Moran on the potential proposal? Councillor Smith?
I don't really have any questions on it. I just wanted to start off just by commenting. First off, I want to thank everybody for all the hours of work that's been put into this, because it's been hours. You guys, I know you guys have been working steady on this for weeks, and so thank you very much. However, I just have a hard time supporting this. I know that if I own a farm, there's no way that I would put this on my farm. I would not want despite how much it was going to pay me, I would not want my neighbor to put this on his farm. I would not want to live anywhere near this. I would not want my children to live anywhere near this. I found myself earlier this week being swayed back to yes earlier last week being swayed back to yes once I found out how much money was going to be involved in this, how much, what our property tax haul was going to be off it, and the increase in the community benefit fund. And then I realized on the weekend that if it was purely the money attached to it that was switching me back over to a yes, that wasn't the right reason to do it. If it's purely financial, that's not right. It's still not right, in my opinion. Yesterday, I just took my phone out and I dropped the pin on the project location, the Potentia project, and if you go a 1 mile radius of that project site, there's about 40 homes within a 1 mile radius. So that's 100 people, maybe, that might live within a 1 mile radius of that, and that, to me, it's just too close, just because of the what ifs. So despite all the staff's hard work on this, I'm going to be a no.
Other comments or questions for Stephanie Moran?
Thank you, through you. First of all, I also want to thank staff for the time they put in. I also want to thank the people that emailed and made some comments, whether negative for or against. I especially want to thank the people that were respectful when they were sending in their comments. I want to say I did really like the disrespect for comments, some of the comments being received, because we just basically were trying to gather up as much information as we can so we can make an intelligent, informed decision. And I know that there's unfortunate, I think some bullying that kind of happened along the way a little bit, which I don't agree with whatsoever. If you're going to give some information, then it's always helpful information, and if you're going to give us some data, it's always helpful data. So I do appreciate the people that did email and give their comments. That was very helpful for the decision-making process. I had originally thought no of both proposals. I'm on record, I was on YouTube, I said I thought there was too many unknowns at the committee of the whole meeting. I did though want to keep still an open mind, and I still want to collect as much information as I could. I do believe potentially has done a better job than the other. You know, we talk about, I know there was an issue with ground source water, and potentially was going to come and drill 2 groundwater monitoring wells and do annual reporting to, you know, I know it's not mitigate, but it is to measure the groundwater to ensure that if there was something that happened, a leak or something, a fire, that, you know, at least we've got some base data and we've got some good data and we're ahead of it. We're not going to leave it going for 3 or 4 or 5 years and then find out people's wells and people are going to get sick. So they were going to drill a couple groundwater wells, which I think is good. The noise was not, I don't think the noise is that big of an issue either. 40 decibels isn't high, and if they were going to mitigate with berming and noise walls and forest trees do add buffers as well to noise, so that was one aspect where I thought that potentially a site was better suited. They talked about spillage. I mean, they were going to design their containers that if there was a leak, it was self-contained. It wasn't going to spread into the ground. It was going to be stored on site, and then they would have to get somebody qualified to come in and clean it up. So they were addressing that matter as well. And I'll be honest with you, it may not seem like a lot, but we're going to find out in the next month when we receive our budget that, you know, the $150,000 community fund plus the taxes would have been a benefit to the municipality. But I also understand that there is a risk, and there are people that are very concerned with it, and can I have order, please? No comments. I as well is very concerned with it. So, you know, I weighed options back and forth in my mind. I really did, because it's a benefit. You know, I got many emails that said, we got to look after the entire South Dundas. Well, that's what I tried to do. I'm trying to weigh it in for everybody, to make a decision that is a benefit for everybody. So I will admit, I was, and I want to hear from my other councillors, because I'm here to support them just as much with the decision making as I would hope they would for me. But, you know, with all the mitigation measures in place, I will admit, I'm going to honestly admit to you, I was leaning towards supporting Potentia's project, because I just felt that the risk was much lower with the mitigation measures that they were prepared to put in place. But again, I'm here to support the people, and I'm here to support our council. So I really want to hear what Councillor Ward and Councillor Buell has to say on the matter, to be quite honest with you.
Councillor Vino.
Yeah, so I'll just give a little bit of kudos to Potentia, because I do agree that they did a great job, especially compared to EDP. However, just because one's better than the other doesn't necessarily mean that either of them are good for the community. And So I spent most of the day on the phone visiting and picking brains of a lot of different, residents and people around South Dundas whose opinion I trust. I'm just trying to get, I guess, a good pulse check for my final decision. And this weekend as well, I was out, and so the same farmer friend of mine that gave me that statistic a couple years ago about how much land we're losing, he said, well, I can give you a better picture. He said, so he owns a dairy operation in Long Sault. He said, that's my farm gone in 2 days. And he milks 90 head of cattle. So you think about food security and food production. So I can't support it mainly on the basis of, while it may not be as prime of ag land as the EVB site, it's still productive farmland and with lots of potential there. And I think that in Ontario, I believe there was 146 of these proposed. 6 of them are going to get, I guess, chosen or selected, whatever it is. There has to be better places in this large province for these than just this land here. I mean, that map there of our transmission lines through SD&G, mainly going through prime ag and waterlands or wetlands, maybe that means that this is not a project for all of SD&G. Like, just because trying to pick out the best of the worst places in our township or our municipalities and counties, I don't think is exactly the right way to go about it. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. The benefits to, and I'm not even going to say the negatives, because there's negatives, but there's more unknowns than there are negatives to me. I think if this is something that these 6 get put in somewhere, and it knocks the socks off, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, well, then they're going to want more, and maybe we can revisit it at that time. But to be the guinea pigs of a new technology, new to this area, I should say, technology, because I realize it's been being used in California, Arizona, and on a micro scale elsewhere. To be the guinea pigs for that, I don't think is something that I have an appetite for. But again, for me, I have a passion for protecting farmland. Same farmer friend, I'm going to keep referencing him. He said, Ontario, a third of Ontario's land is agrable. And we've lost 18% of it, 18% of a third in Ontario. And we continue to lose it at an exponential rate. So for that reason, I cannot support this.
Councilor Ward?
So I'll be honest, I actually thank you to staff. Really appreciate the report, really appreciate, and I want to echo to the people that are in the audience and the people that are listening. It's a good unbiased approach. You use good planning principles, so thank you. I also want to thank Potentia and EDP. Potentia did give us lots of information, and EDP did try and provide what they could. I have to say that both are doing their best with the time that they have to submit an RFP document to the province. Unfortunately for them, it comes at an inconvenience and a lot of questions that go unanswered, and I target that back to the province for their deadlines, but I appreciate both EDP and Potentia being leaders in the industry and trying to do something here in South Dundas, and I hope in the future if something like this comes up with more answers that they do pursue us once again. So I don't want them to think that this is me saying I don't ever want to entertain something from them in the future when more things are known. Past couple of weeks, I'm a little bit disappointed in South Dundas. I received a lot of great comments, a lot of great feedback, and I really appreciate that. But I've also received a lot of not so great feedback and some, I would say, bullying. It's unfortunate. I do think this technology is cool, and I will go on the record saying that once again, regardless of how people think that is. It is a very interesting technology. Obviously, the province is asking us to provide options for the future to fund electrical vehicles or whatever the grid needs, and so this is an interesting way to kind of stopgap that measure until we have proper infrastructure in place. I was also leaning towards yes. However, I have received quite a bit of feedback saying that this community is not ready for this project at this time. I think to Councillor Vino's point as well, having an environmental background, we are losing farmland. It is unfortunate that I couldn't find non-prime ag land to do this on. If this would have come on rural lands or, you know, something else, it probably would have been a slam dunk for me, I'll be honest. I think the Potentia site is probably the best site we have, maybe in South Dundas. It offers the buffer. It's pretty far away. I know Councillor Smith says that there's quite a bit of homes in the area, but there'll be quite a bit of homes everywhere we look. But for the reasons of just, you know, to Councillor Vino's point, losing farmland in the province main mandate, again, I'm going to go back to the province on this one. Their main mandate is to protect agricultural land. They don't allow severances on prime agricultural land. They don't allow a lot of things on prime agricultural land. But to promote their own items on prime agricultural land concerns me. I guess my final point is that I really hope the province is listening to these municipalities. I really wish they would have consulted with us before they did this. And if they think that, you know, just simply getting a company to approach us to get our approval, I really do think it would have come better from the IESO. I really do think that them approaching us first and saying, this is what we have plans for the grid for the future, what do you think of this? And then launching their RFP program, it would have been received better by multiple municipalities. So I think I've said my piece, and yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Guess I'll share my thoughts and my comments. So in my inauguration speech over a year ago, I talked about how I wanted us to think about yes, and let's figure out how. And over the last year, we've had a lot of yeses, and we've had some nos in amongst all of that. But I really wanted us to continue to grow and continue. And over the last year, we've had a few gains. We haven't had a lot. We have Valcraft Homes come on board, and that's really our only, you know, feather in our hat so far, as we've got a developer wanting to build some houses, but we don't have anything else. And this was a project that we first heard about actually probably 8 or 9 months ago, and we didn't even understand what the projects were until the RFPs came out. And since then, we've had council meetings, delegations, 2 public meetings, a committee of the whole meeting, many Q&As for sure, conversations with residents, social media posts. But it's something I'm going to repeat again, and I said this at the council of the whole meeting. I challenge any community that has spent as much time with their staff and ourselves as councillors looking at this project, these 2 projects. We have spent a lot of money to get to where we are today. I've personally talked to staff members. I've talked to South Dundas residents. I've talked to other mayors in other communities that have accepted the proposals and turned down the proposals. We left a lot of rocks. We've turned over a lot of rocks to take a look at it. Obviously, for the most part, you know, from the community, it was, you know, about the 3 risks: noise, environment, and our firefighters, our fire service. Certainly, many of those have been, you know, mitigated through the conversations over the last 6 weeks. But there's always risk, no matter what. We have ships that pass by us in the St. Lawrence River. We have a CN rail pass through our community. We have transports on Highway 401 pass through our community. We have gas running through the grounds through our communities. These are all risks. This would be no different than any of those risks that we have today. We also have businesses that operate that have risks, farms that have risks, natural gas, there's many risks that we have. So it's going to be our decision whether we want to entertain this risk or not. So what's in it for us? Well, obviously potential electricity in the grid. They've identified we will have shortcomings in the future. We talked to a mayor neighboring us that lost a significant construction project because they didn't have enough electrical power. So we will be looking for electricity, and we may not have it. While supporting these bids doesn't mean that we support the project overall. It's a resolution for them to move forward, to keep working on the bid proposal. Obviously, to the municipality, other than electricity, we have a cash influx. We're not going to see that influx in our term. If you look at when the proposals start, it's at the earliest, it's fourth quarter of 2026, 2027. But that being said, at 150,000 plus 60 or 70,000 in taxes over 25 years, we're talking about $5 million that we're going to need to find somewhere else. And we're going to need to find that money. Costs are not going down. Nothing in the municipality is going to be cheaper tomorrow than it is today. Every wage we pay, every piece of paper we buy, every water line we lay, every fire service person we pay, we outfit, every road we have, every time we put out a snowplow, every one of those things are going to cost more. Every time. Nothing is going to cost less. Yes, there's some risks with any project. There are going to be hundreds of electrical cars in our community in the near future. They are all going to have batteries in them. It'll be no different than these storage units sitting on a piece of property. And I had one very electrical engineer tell me that they will make these batteries safer than any car battery because they can make them bigger, stronger, and heavier because they don't need to move them, right? And our cell phones and our car batteries, they need to be light, so they make them as small and as tight as possible. These batteries will be safe, can be safe. I'll end with saying we have provincial partners that are looking to us for this support. And by the way of what we've seen other communities pass, I would take a guess, because I don't know, that if we say no, there will be a battery plant of 300 megawatts on our property line, which is at Edwardsburg Cardinal. And if you go to Potentia's website today and look at where that is, it is neighboring our property. They are going to have that battery plant and bring millions and millions of dollars into their community. Yet we are going to sit beside all the risk you just talked about. We are going to have the risk. We are neighboring them. It will be farmland, not used as farm. So with that being said, it's up to the will of council. And we need to make a tough decision. And it's ours to make, and I stand behind the team to whatever they want to do. I will support them in that way. And tomorrow will be a new day no matter what. Ms. Warren?
A few other things, just on Potentia's site. I think we have to remember too that this is a procurement. So what the bids that they are putting in are secret up until they put them in tomorrow. When they proposed the site to us, it was a 15 to 20 acre site. So when we first started all of this, it was a substantial amount of farmland. What they have told us in terms of the bid that they are looking to put in is that this site will actually be less than 5 acres. So that is something I think that you should know. Also, and I really want to put a lot of weight too on a solution that I've sort of proposed in terms of maybe just mitigating some other concerns. You know, we talked about if there was a spill, a self-contained unit. These are things that we have time is on our side in this case. We have time to look at some of the best practices across the world, really, in terms of adding an appendix to that subdivision and site plan design guideline. And what that is that it would tell Potentia, or it would tell any other company, that these are the municipality's expectations on your site. If we want them to be self-contained, if we want a certain material underneath, instead of just gravel or concrete or what have you, these are things that we have time to do, that we can get we can sort of look at the best practices, and we can ask an engineer to take a look and see what we can do in terms of how we can make that site safer. that is just something I wanted to add to the conversation as just a forethought.
Yes, I think their
An
point of
afterthought.
potential said they would apply at 100 megawatt, which would be the 5 acres, so that's what they were zoning in on their bid to be.
Yeah, he did say it would be about less than 5 acres, just less than 5 acres.
Any other comments? So I have a motion, so the motion is based on the recommendation, so I'll need an approver and a seconder, and then we'll vote on the motion. Okay? So the motion reads that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas supports the development, construction, and operation of the long-term reliability project on the subject lands identified as part lots 28 and 29, concession 6, Kirker Road, South Branch Road, Gilmore Road, formerly of the village of Matilda. Can I have a mover for the motion? Okay, thank you, Councillor Smith. Seconded by Councillor Ward. Those in favor of the motion? Those against the motion? The motion is defeated. Thank you very much. Okay, moving to bylaws under 9A, 2023-89 water and wastewater rates. Treasurer Stewart.
Following the presentation for water and wastewater, we're proposing the 4% increase to the 2023 tax rate for Morrisburg and Iroquois. I understand that with Williamsburg wastewater, we will come back with alternatives in January. But as far as the water rates for Morrisburg and wastewater, we ask approval on the bylaw presented to you.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none, I have a motion that bylaw 2023-89 being a bylaw to amend Schedule B to bylaw 2017-58 to enact rules and regulations to inspect, install, repair, replace, or alter water meters and related apparatus, including the penalties of offenses, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. Nine B, 2023-99, delegation of authority of tax write-offs. Treasurer Stewart.
You, Mayor Broad. So annually, we prepare budgets that include property tax write-offs. And throughout the year, we come to council to ask for approval of various tax write-offs. What we're asking tonight is so that there would be delegation of authority to the treasurer, myself, to approve property tax write-offs up to the point of what is budgeted for the year. Anything over and above would have to come to council for approval at that point.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I have a motion that bylaw 2023-99 being a bylaw to delegate the authority of property tax write-offs to the treasurer of the municipality of South Dundas be read in open council, signed and sealed. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. Nine C, 2023-100, regulate speed on Willbrook Drive. Manager of Roads, Transportation, Mr. Hyman.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So in front of you is a request. The municipality did receive correspondence from residents on Alt Island expressing concerns about the current 60 kilometer per hour speed limit on Willbrook Drive. Residents are requesting that the speed limit be reduced from 60 to 40. So some background information on how speed limits are created. The Ministry of Transportation creates speed limits based on certain criteria. So under the Highway Traffic Act, the rate of speed states under section 128(1), no person shall drive a motor vehicle at a rate of speed greater than 50 kilometers per hour on a highway within a local municipality or within a built-up area. It also states under section 128 that the council of a municipality may, for motor vehicles driven on a highway, by law prescribe a rate of speed different than the rate set out in subsection 1 that is not greater than 100 kilometers per hour, and may prescribe different rates of speeds for different times of day. It also says within the Highway Traffic Act under 128, subsection 2.1, that a bylaw passed under subsection 2 may designate an area in the municipality and describe a rate of speed which must be less than 50 kilometers per hour within a built-up area. So I have reviewed this area. It is a typical cross-section road, a traveled portion for your vehicles with open ditch lines on either side, with residential houses on either side of the ditch line. I would be confident in reducing the speed to 50 kilometers per hour on Willbrook Drive. It should also be noted that on November 22nd, 2023, that the Council of the Township of South Stormont passed a bylaw in favor of reducing the speed to 40 kilometers per hour on that section of Willbrook Drive. So they own the east portion of Willbrook Drive, and the municipality of South Dundas owns the west portion of Willbrook Drive, with Alt Island Road connecting that said road. So in front of you is two options. Option A, for council's consideration, is that the speed be reduced to 50 kilometers per hour. Or option B, that the speed be reduced to 40 kilometers per hour to match that of South Stormont's previously passed bylaw. Staff will make the necessary steps to erect signage reflecting the new speed limit, whether it be 50 or 40, and notify the concerned residents and the Ontario Provincial Police. So within that communication plan, I will then bring forward amended speed limit bylaw, which will then reflect the new speed limit of either being 50 or being 40. And I can answer any questions which you may have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Hyman. Councilor Vino.
I may have missed it, but what's the speed limit on the Alt Island Road?
Through you, Mayor Broad, it's 60.
60. All right. Personally, I know we're splitting hairs between 50 and 40, but if the other side of Willbrook is 40, I feel like our side should be 40, because otherwise you got 3 different speed limits on like a mile of road. Makes sense.
Deputy Mayor?
Through you, Mayor Broad, actually, I was going to say that as well. I would support a 40 just for the confusion. And in addition, if I may, off topic, you can skip point of order with me. I think we should be coming up with a committee of a whole meeting in the new year and looking at all of our speed limits throughout all of our, especially in our villages, because it's the common theme, speeders, whether it's legit or not. I do think we should really do a good thorough review of all of our speed limits within our town. Sorry, can you hear me? Okay, within our town, especially school zones, the whole gamut. Sorry.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I know you have asked the counties to look at some of our county road speed limits as well. Councilor Ward? Councilor? Oh, sorry, St. Mills?
Mr. Mayor, to the point there about us looking at the limits, so Director Hyman and I had the conversation that, okay, once we make one, then we're going to have to look at all the others. So let's just look at it globally a little bit, that we have the OPP here tonight asking for our help for Community Watch, which is going to cost, which will cost staff time, and we agree in principle. It's going to cost staff time, and we're going to potentially invest in that. If we are looking at lowering the speed limits, who's going to enforce them? The OPP's already come to us to ask for our help to do things. We do have complaints within the community about speed on the one side, but on the other side, there simply are not enough officers on the road to enforce that. So, for example, we agree that on one side, Alt Island is 40, and so Stormont passed it. So we're going to go 40. But who's going to enforce it down there? It's going to be the people who are driving along looking at the sign. So I would just caution council on looking through the whole municipality, like what is, if the problem may come our way, but is the solution for us to enforce it and not the police? I mean, it's a bigger conversation, I understand, but.
Thank you. Thank you, St. Mills. So at the motion at hand, like the appetite is to mimic what South Stormwater has done at this point, the 40 kilometers an hour. So I have a motion that bylaw 2023-100 being a bylaw to regulate speed limit on Wilbur Drive at 40 kilometers an hour be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed December 11, 2023. Moved by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. (9D) 2023-101 Animal Control Agreement 6-month extension. CO Mills.
Much, Mr. Mayor, through you. So this is a report on extending the animal or canine control officer animal bylaw another 6 months. Just a little history for council that we keep extending the contract by a year. So it should say actually end 2023 in number 2. I apologize. I've been in contact because we are the lead with 3 other municipalities, namely North Stormont, South Stormont, and North Dundas. Just so council's aware that the municipality or the township of South Glengarry also uses Mr. Castleman, just they have their own agreement. We continue to look at other options, but we have been unable to find other options, so we keep extending the contract. At some point, we know Mr. Castleman's not going to do it anymore, and we're looking strategically at what to do. So we're recommending, the extension for 6 months, and we're regrouping as CAOs and as staff to look at it. But just as a caution that when we've looked at other options besides this, it's a lot more expensive. So.
Thank you for that, CO Mills. Yeah, I think collaboration with our partners is important, and hopefully we can find a suitable solution. Extension for 6 months. Any questions or comments? Okay, motion that council adopt bylaw 23-101 being a bylaw to amend 2019-20, the animal control agreement with Kevin Castleman to extend for 6 months until June 30th, 2024. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. (9E) 2023-101 proposed amendment to zoning bylaw. So that was Ms. Moran presented earlier. Anything to add, Ms. Moran, or?
No, I think just aside from that, this is a solution that there are some landowners that could use in the future, and I think it's important to be able to have another offering, another solution for them.
Okay. Any questions or comments? I have a motion that the council approve the proposed amendment to zoning bylaw 2010-48 pertaining to all lands within boundaries of the municipality of South Dundas. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. And lastly, on the bylaw side, 9F 2023-101 South Dundas Emergency Response Plan. Our Chief, Jeremy Eldred Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is just updating bylaw. So recommendations for council to adopt bylaw 2023-103. This is updating our emergency management plan as well as our committee and control group. So it was noted that our director of water was not added to that. So upon passing the bylaw, that's something administratively that will ensure is in it.
Thank you. And may I suggest we do a practice of our plan at some point?
The emergency response plan?
Yes. We could do a walkthrough as a plan. Read the document inside and out, but we should execute a small internal emergency. Yes. And we can walk through, and we can find, this way we can find defects on that. So thank you for updating. Any questions or comments on the emergency plan? There's lots of details to it. It's quite large, right? And it encompasses a big area, so. Okay, I have a motion that council adopt bylaw 2023-101 being a bylaw to updated the South Dundas Emergency Response Plan in order to meet the other requirements under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. Okay. under 10, council representatives. Councilor Vino, BOA update from December 5th meeting.
Yeah, not a whole lot because a lot of that meeting was actually spent in closed session for some personnel opportunities. Outside of that, we basically just talked about some Christmas decorating and whatnot around the plaza and making sure everybody was set for that, and a little bit of budget stuff, budget requirements and requests for next year. But like I said, most of it was spent in closed, so that's all I got for an update.
Thank you. Economical development, so CO Mills, Deputy Mayor, and myself were all in attendance in our package. I'm just going to get to the page here. So I have everything. We did have a delegation at our meeting. We had Mike Thompson and some members of the Canada Day committee come and share a whole lot of plans for next year's Canada Day that involves some new vendors into the park, which they're working through. But their big ask for us for tonight is whether we could support a resolution that they use municipal property, the Ball Diamond, to have helicopter rides. So something they're trying to introduce. They have a company out of Gananoque, fully insured. Obviously, all the insurance that will be provided to us to make sure everything is fine. But they're looking for our approval to be able to execute helicopter rides on Canada Day 2024. So that was their big ask from the meeting. I'll get to the resolution at the end. Otherwise, in the BI or in the community agenda, we had input into think about future plans of the committee as far as activities for both growth and then community spirit, volunteerism on keeping our community clean. That was a lengthy discussion. Anything else, Deputy Mayor, specifically? No. Canada Day, and then just thinking forward through our plans. So I do have a resolution, if we're willing to support, that council supports the use of municipal property for helicopter landing on Canada Day 2024. So, Councilor Vino, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. Very good. Okay, Councilor Smith, update on South Nation Conservation.
Yeah, I unfortunately missed the last meeting at South Nation due to the death in the family. Just quickly went over the minutes from the last meeting, and it was preliminary budget. They're gonna be up at 3-4%, which I guess in the world we're living in today is nothing. So going to be nailing that down maybe on first meeting in January for sure. I think we'll have the final. CAO Mills, you may have already got the draft budget already from, did you not receive it? No? Draft budget from South Nation?
Received it by email through you, Mr. Mayor. No.
No,
But-
you didn't? Okay.
but,
I thought the draft was circulated already. Maybe not.
I didn't see it by email.
No?
Did you get it? Oh, yes, we did get it.
Oh, okay. Sorry to put you on the spot. So we'll be up a couple grand. Our contribution will be up a couple grand. So.
Okay, very good. SDG counties, we had a budget meeting last Wednesday, so spent the day going through budget items. County budget started at 549, ended up at 436. Lots of money being spent at roads, which is a lot of the requirements of the counties. One thing that we did keep in the budget of the chipping County Road 5, which is a border with us with North Dundas that had the discussions. But we will strike up. We had some requests from some community, United Way and Society, looking for some funds, and we're going to work on that in the future. So it was a delay in that. So I know we've had some of those groups in our chambers before. So that's something more to come on that budget. And we will bring in a new warden. So Jamie McDonald will be elected warden on Friday. So we'll be at the inauguration Friday. Anything to add, Deputy Mayor? Archives meeting, which was held on the 8th. CO Mills, would you like briefly speak, or Clerk LeBrun, please.
Rod. So we had an archives meeting on Friday. A lot of the topics were around space. So there's a bit of a need for some added space at the archives, in particular for the UEL group, which is the United Empire Loyalists St. Lawrence branch. So we discussed space, and it doesn't come cheaply, I guess. So I believe at this time the archives are, the board decided that we would look at some alternative solutions to find some additional space at the archives for the UEL group. Some other topics that we talked about was getting some costume for another flagpole for the UEL. And they're also looking for some signage to identify the UEL at the archive. So we're bringing back some information at the next archive meeting.
Thank you, Clerk LeBrun. Any other committees we were involved in? Seeing none, consent agenda 11A. We included the full report. So you remember at our last council meeting, we had a delegation about our OSUM Bridge summary. Tonight is in the whole package, as it was referred to. So the whole package is available. We also have our 2024 council meeting dates, fleet repairs update, and Rideau St. Lawrence Morrisburg branch closing effective in January. So I have a motion that all items listed under consent agenda be adopted as presented. Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. Okay, under notice of motions last time, we had a follow-up to support the resolution for income tax relief for volunteer firefighters. So I have it's been included in the package of the resolution, but I have a motion to accept that resolution. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of Municipality of South Dundas call upon the Government of Canada to support Bill C-310 to enact amendments to subsections 11806 and 11807 of the Income Tax Act in order to increase the amount of tax credits for volunteer firefighting and search and rescue volunteer services from $3,000 to $10,000. And furthermore, that the copy of the resolution be shared with the Association of Fire Chiefs, Algoma Mutual Aid, Associated Municipalities of Ontario, and other Ontario municipalities. Councillor Vino, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. Do we have any notices of motion? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor Broad, and just to make it official. I think I'd like to put a motion on the table that staff does go and look at the speed limits throughout the municipality, and so we can do an evaluation if speed limits do need to be lowered. I just want to make sure we put that on record as a motion.
So noted. Any other notice of motions? Seeing none. Clerk LeBrun, should I read the ratification bylaw or move to closed?
We'll move into closed.
Move into
Rob,
closed?
And we'll come back out of closed to
Okay.
do the ratification.
Do the ratification bylaw. Thank you very much. So as we'll move into closed, I'll say my thank yous at this point. So certainly thank you to all the staff that worked on tonight's agenda and all the particulars when it came to the battery storage proposals. So thank you to my council team for endeavoring lots of feedback, some personal, some legitimate. So thank you for that. It's not always easy, but we're elected officials, so this is why we're here, to make decisions and go from there. So with that, thank you to staff. Thank you for the folks involved with the water budget tonight and presentations on that. So for the council team, we'll close our meeting for December the 11th, 2023.